Hey now, Adam. What's going on?
What's up? How you doing?
I'm doing
What-
great. Hope you're doing well. Hope everyone listening is doing well because today we're going to be watching the amazing, very contentious, very uncomfortable Don Lemon Elon Musk interview.
Which is great, yeah. How
And then
insane is Don Lemon?
it's it's weird. He's a professional journalist and has been so for many years. It's this kind of a shockingly horrible interview, maybe one of the worst I've ever seen. So he definitely does not have good interview skills. Does
Right.
definitely doesn't have it. He doesn't have it.
Yeah, it's completely worldview related though. Like if you're in this woke ideological bubble and you really can't understand the motivations of anyone outside of that bubble, you're
Hmm.
going to produce interviews like this. This like piece of garbage interview.
Well, I mean, this is even I don't know. You can give contentious like Kathy Newman-esque interview. This is worse than a Kathy Newman interview. You just it's terrible. But we'll get into it. You'll see. And then after it, we'll talk. There's a very interesting. We'll tease this. Some very interesting counterpoints. I'm sorry, contrapoints
Oh yeah.
lore that was dropped and then immediately deleted by ContraPoints on Twitter.
Right.
So we'll
Right.
talk about that
Yes.
after.
Because a bunch of people probably tagged Ollie.
Philosophy Tube, yeah. There,
Philosophy tube. Yeah, exactly.
there was some rumors that have been speculated for many years, which now seem to be confirmed. So
Right,
we'll
right.
get into
Yes.
that.
So the interesting thing about this interview this interview could have been 1,000 times better because there are a lot of people who feel like Elon Musk has abandoned his free speech goal with the
Hmm.
platform. So if Don Lemon wasn't in such an ideologically captured bubble, he would have brought he would have hit him with the racism stuff because that's what the progressives want to hear. But he also would have hit him with the free speech stuff that the conservatives want to hear. And there would have
Hmm.
been something for everyone in this interview, and everyone would have lost their minds. It would have been like, oh my God, Don Lemon actually knows what he's talking about. Because the real controversy here is like threading that needle between free speech and hate speech. But no,
Right.
Don Lemon just comes out on the whole, oh, it's all hate speech, ban it all, delete everything. So with this censorious attitude,
Hmm.
which is just, I mean, it makes him look like very foolish. So
Well,
I do think
Don.
Elon Musk has a difficult task, and I think Don
Mhm.
Lemon could have played that up more.
Don does this thing that a lot of journalists and interviewers do. We saw this kind of in the libs of TikTok being interviewed by Taylor Lorenz conversation, where it's very obvious that the interviewer is not neutral, that they have a very strong bias against the person, they have a very strong ideological bias, and but yet they still act like, oh, I'm an interviewer. I'm just going to ask you questions. I'm not going to try. I'm trying to not respond to any questions you ask me, and I'm going to try not to actually have a conversation. I'm just going to ask you like very pointed, very probing questions to make you look bad.
Yeah.
And it's just very obvious when you see this being done that this is just a very dishonest tactic. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But we're going to be jumping all over the conversation to cut out all the boring stuff. But
Yeah,
so
I think we
let's,
want to focus mostly on the racism woke charges and the free speech charges.
yeah,
Actually, I
yeah,
think it's the DEI stuff too.
right. There's a, that's what we're mostly going to focus on. Um, but there's a couple like parts in the beginning that are like a minute or two that are interesting that just kind of provide interesting context for the rest of the conversation. So,
All right.
We're still here. In a minute, I'm going to bring you my conversation with Elon Musk, the one that everyone is talking about. But first, let me tell you a bit about the show. Contrary to what you might have heard, we weren't canceled by X. Yes, after months of begging me, wooing me to offer some exclusive content on his platform, Elon Musk decided to scrap the deal. But our plan
it's never a good idea. Like, it's not good when you're interviewing with the subject. You have to make like this, like, oh, he was wooing me. He was wooing us. We weren't desperate ones, right?
He was
Like,
down on one knee, begging, pleading with me, please, Don Lemon, you're such a genius. Please come to my platform. I'm desperate for your insight.
hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Don. I mean, this just okay. We're 29 seconds in, and Don already sounds delusional.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure Elon was asking he wants people to be on the platform, sure, but like it's also very like not professional, right? Like you just be
Of
like,
course
oh, like
not.
you just say like, oh, it didn't work out or didn't fall through, right? Because you want to basically keep the door open for future people to work with you. And this is, starting your big interview off by talking about how they were begging you and pleading you is not the way to go.
And look, even if he was begging you, I mean, you can't expect someone that you knife in the back to be like, oh yeah, okay, now everything's fine.
Yeah, yeah,
Everything's cool, right?
exactly right.
Oh yeah, I was begging you until you slit my throat.
Yeah, right. And in this
Yeah.
conversation, Don doesn't push back to this. In this conversation, Elon says that it was Don Lemon who was kind of like begging for the interview with Elon. So
That's more what I think was going on here.
yeah.
Well,
Plan is-
just it could have been just a casual invitation that he's making out to be some kind of
Maybe.
He asked him twice.
Yeah.
and always has been to release this show everywhere on YouTube, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, just about any place you stream content. Now for my conversation with Elon. As with all my interviews, no restrictions, no ground rules, nothing off limits or out of bounds. That is until the interview ended. So what went wrong? I don't know. But my hope is that you learned something about both Elon and me, two people who come from completely different vantage points on.
Well, okay, so this is so bad. This is like wildly bad faith. So he's setting it up like, I just wanted to like know what is true. There's no rules, and everything was fine until the interview soured, and I have no clue why. Which, first of all, when you watch it, you'll know very clearly why Elon wouldn't be very happy with this conversation. Number one, but number two, in the conversation, like first of all, it's an hour conversation, okay, or it's an hour and 6 minutes conversation with someone who is running all these businesses. And even says in the interview that, they had slotted some amount of time for the interview. And then afterwards they have meetings with other people they have to talk to.
Yeah.
And so to me, it seems very dishonest for Don Lemon to sort of like frame it like, oh, and like, he's not claiming, he's making it sound like they had slotted aside like 2 or 3 hours for this conversation and he left early. And yet he's not saying that specifically, which is in my mind, a tell for the fact that he's being dishonest.
Way dishonest, yeah.
Almost every single issue. And I challenge you, Elon, to watch the whole interview and tell the world why this isn't what you claim you want on X. Thank you for inviting us here.
Like it's so obvious. He thinks all of he even says in here, he thinks the media is currently dishonest. Like, why would you want to invite more dishonest media onto X?
Right.
That's the problem. And the fact that Don Lemon doesn't know that, doesn't understand that, oh man.
Mm-hmm.
Just bubble boy. Woke bubble boy.
You're welcome.
Tesla headquarters, I'm surprised at how big it is. I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's about 3 times the size of the Pentagon.
Yeah.
And we built it in 16 months. It's the fastest construction project in the United States since World War II.
So I'm here, as you know, I'm on the platform because you say you're a free speech absolutist, right? And there are no conditions.
Yeah. Free speech is as much as possible within the bounds of the law.
Yeah. So the reason I'm saying that is because there are no conditions on this interview. You said that, we'll speak to you for an hour. I don't like sound bites, so I welcome that. So let's get into it. So
okay, so he said, speak to you for an hour. He says it in the beginning of the conversation. So they speak for an hour, right? So
yeah.
Why is he making it seem like he canceled the interview early or something?
Elon gave him an extra 6 minutes, and he's acting like he rage quit.
There you go. Okay, let me jump ahead.
did you think that?
I thought you were on the left, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm used to...
Okay, so wait. So he asked Don if he assumes Don is on the left, and Don says that he's not. Which seems kind of laughable, but okay.
Ha ha ha.
You and people can make their own decision about what they believe.
You didn't mean that I'm on the left? Did you think that?
I thought you were on the left, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm used to... Well, let's just say I don't know what the left is or the right is, frankly, these days, because things can be quite polarized. But you seem... My impression was that you're more likely to be described as on the left than the right. My sense is you're sort of center left. I don't know. You tell me.
Well, Did you ever watch me on CNN, or did you watch?
I saw
Yeah.
yeah, not. I saw segments.
Yeah.
But CNN is generally considered left.
Yeah. Why do you say that?
Why do I say CNN is generally considered left? I think if you look at any sort of media survey of what is on the left or right, I think they would say, like, for example, Fox is on the right and CNN is on the left.
Yeah. So that's what is it?
Am I missing something here?
Okay. Are you missing something?
I
don't know. I think that when I read that, I said, like many of my critics or detractors, they never really watched me on CNN. They just saw the clips of me either on social media or maybe on Fox News or conservative media,
Yeah.
where it's sort of where
You see, like, okay, so he says, I assume that you're like left, center, left. And Don's like, why is that? And, he says, well, it's just kind of this impression that we all seem to get. And so if you notice, Don never says he's not.
Yeah.
He never says, no, I'm not. I consider myself, an independent, enlightened centrist. And here's why. Here are positions I have that. He never does any of this stuff. He just challenges, and says, I'm going to make you answer all the questions and give nothing in response. It's like talking to basically a wall, essentially.
Yeah, it's bad form.
Yeah.
This is the narrative with many progressives, many normie progressives, that
Yes.
The reality has a progressive bias. CNN is just normal, straight down the middle news. That's reality, right? We're not progressive. We're just fair. It's just fair, straight down the middle news, right?
Mhm.
You can tell Don believes that narrative. He believes that narrative is true. And Elon has insulted him by saying, look, you're on the left. It's pretty obvious. What? Us? No, of course not. We're CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Mhm.
Yeah. This is the problem right here.
become a character or a caricature of what I actually am, and it's taken out of context.
Sure. Well, how would you describe yourself?
I would describe myself as someone who is I am independent in my thinking,
Okay.
and I vote for people based on the issues and how I feel about it, not necessarily because of political leaning of some sort.
Well, I agree with that approach. I think that's generally.
Do you like the hedge? I'm independent in my thinking.
I'm just an independent.
It's like, oh, okay, I guess. What does that mean?
I've never voted for a Republican in my life, but look, I'm an
Exactly, yeah.
independent.
Right. It's like, oh, okay. Okay, let me jump that a bit.
Left. That's fine. And that was really, I think a lot of it was due to being located in San Francisco, Berkeley. And so
So he's talking about how when you look at these, and sure, we've talked about this, and you've probably seen it on Twitter. They have that data that shows that a lot of these media organizations, a lot of programming companies, anything in the computer industry, like when you see how much, like if they donate to the left or right causes, and you see it's like almost entirely donating to the left.
Right, which is
And-
putting your money where your mouth is. That's
Right, which is fine. We live in a free country, but obviously that bias is going to be reflected in these fields, and it's silly to pretend like that's not the case.
right. Yes.
it wanted to essentially project the SF Berkeley political dogma worldwide.
You think it was far left?
Yes, I do.
I used to get, I actually got off the platform because I would get so much hate tweets when it was called in, so much hate tweets and just guff from right-wing conspiracy theorists being called everything from, fag to
Sure. Well,
nigger
it's
to
the internet,
everything.
that people will do. I mean, I've been called.
Thanks for demonetizing our video there, Don Lemon.
Yeah, sorry, I should have got that.
What the heck?
I forgot that he said that.
That's like a major flex right there. It's like,
Yeah.
yes, I can say these words, Elon. You
Yeah.
can't.
He's got the
Okay.
black and gay pass.
Yeah. Dude, such a piece of shit, man.
Yeah.
Don Lemon is a piece of garbage. John Lemon is a trash human being. Okay. And I don't say that because he's black or gay. I say it because as a human being,
Yeah.
he is a deceitful liar.
I say it because
And look, he's an idiot.
demonetizing our videos
Yeah.
with his
I'm so
hilarious-
glad Elon fired him right after this
There
interview.
you go.
Like, look, I honestly, I don't see this. I don't see Don Lemon's show blowing up, man. I think
No.
nobody really cared about Don Lemon on CNN. The only reason he had a platform was because CNN was putting him in front of millions of people. Even if
Yeah.
CNN even has millions of people left, but nobody's going to Don Lemon because they miss him from CNN.
No, he has, I mean, his interview skills are terrible, as evidence of this conversation. He has very low charisma, and he also doesn't say anything remotely interesting to either side.
Yeah, he's an NPC.
Yeah.
Well, every name times 1,000.
Yeah. Do you agree that it's right now, and that even
No.
it's moved into sort of MAGA
No,
land,
I
conspiracy
don't.
theory?
I certainly don't think it's right. The old school Twitter suspended and suppressed accounts that you'd call on the right 10 times more than they did accounts on the left. And even when they did suspend an account on the left, it was because of arguments between two people on the left. The political donations of old Twitter were 99% Democrat. Does that sound left-wing or right-wing to you?
The Twitter donations?
Yes. You know when they look at donations from a company? If a company donates literally 99% of all donations are to Democrats, does that strike you as a left-leaning or a right-leaning
Oh, you mean the company donated? I understand what you're
And what I'm
saying.
trying to tell you is that
Look, he's an idiot. This guy is a straight moron. He has to tell him 3 times. Have you not heard this metric before, Don?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's employees of the company donating of their free volition their own money. It's not the company donating to Democrats. Look, and he still doesn't get it. This guy's such an idiot.
Twitter employees, people at Twitter, their political donations were 99%, literally 99%, to Democrats. That's obviously an extremely left-leaning group.
My question to leading into this was about MAGA. You and speaking
and then he just blows it off.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, oh, okay.
of MAGA, you recently met with Donald Trump in Florida. What did you guys talk about?
I was at a dinner. I was not done. I was at a breakfast at a friend's place, and Donald Trump came by. That's it.
So you didn't go there to meet him?
No, I went to a friend of mine's house, and it said Donald Trump's coming by for breakfast. Is that just so you know? Like, okay, fine.
What did you discuss?
I don't. Let's just say he did most of the talking.
What did you say?
That's so good.
Yeah, and then he keeps asking him, and then Elon just keeps saying it again and again, like, oh, he just keeps like implying like he likes to hear the sound of his own voice. He was the one talking. I didn't say much. So
Yeah,
okay,
I just read Walter. It's Walter Isaacson, right? Yeah, Walter Isaacson's book on Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is not a fan of Donald Trump. Donald Trump invited Elon Musk to talk to him about, I don't know, clean energy, electric cars, whatever, when Donald Trump first took the White House. And a lot of people gave Elon Musk a hard time for taking that meeting with Donald Trump, but nothing came out of that meeting. And Elon had the attitude, if I can work with him, I'll work with anyone, right? But nothing became of it. And he was really not impressed with Donald Trump. So the idea that Elon Musk is going out to like court Donald Trump is ridiculous. Every single interaction with Donald Trump that Walter Isaacson mentions in the book is just basically Donald Trump trying to get something out of Elon Musk, and Elon Musk just kind of like shining him on.
Well, it's because he doesn't. I mean, Elon Musk really doesn't like Biden, so because he doesn't like Biden, because he doesn't like Democrats, people perceive it as therefore he must be like Trump's sycophant or something.
Elon Musk has every reason not to like Biden.
I know.
They did some clean energy summit and they've invited Ford for electric cars. What the? Tesla is like the largest car company in the world right now, and they're inviting Ford. Like they basically pioneered the technology for electric cars, and Biden snubs them like that. I wouldn't like him either.
Yep. Okay, so I'm not going to play it, but there are the questions he asked that I kind of skipped over. He asked Elon about what kind of medicines he takes. And he says and he says like, don't you take ketamine? And Elon becomes like very uncomfortable. And he's like, why do you and he keeps like probing him, and he's like, why do you take this, medication, blah, 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 blah. So that kind of puts Elon in a sour mood. And then like right before this segment, he was sort of accusing Elon of pushing great replacement theory conspiracy stuff on Twitter. So
I just want to say, the only reason Don Lemon brings up the MAGA stuff is because in Don Lemon's mind, Elon Musk and Donald Trump are like on the phone 24/7,
right.
best friends.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Maximize the number of illegals because it helps them win elections.
I'm talking about the Great Replacement Theory is also part of a Jewish conspiracy theory. And when you did the tweet, or you responded to the tweet about that, you ended up apologizing, and which I think is, it's good that you ended up apologizing. You went to Auschwitz with Ben Shapiro.
Did you like that little eye roll?
I know I was going to back it up a little. Can we see that? Can we
Yeah,
pause on that?
Tweet, or you responded to the tweet about that, you ended up apologizing, and which I think is, it's good that you ended up apologizing. You went to Auschwitz.
Right there. That's the moment that
Right.
Elon Musk got the idea to fire Don Lemon right after this interview.
You can see the thought bubble forming
Right
like
there.
bloop, 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 bloop.
Right
Like I don't
there.
want this guy. Yeah.
Fire this a-hole immediately. What was I thinking?
Right.
What was I thinking?
No, I think asking about this tweet is fair. I just think like the way he's asking is stupid because I do think that Elon's response to the tweet was retarded
Yes.
in the first place. There's an element of it that he agreed with, and there's a bunch of stuff embedded within the tweet he didn't agree with. And it was stupid to just kind of blankly say, like, this is true. Because then it's like, wait, what are you agreeing to? Like, that's ridiculous.
We talk about this all the time on the left. There's the people there that use some phrase that seems innocuous, and then a bunch of useful idiots that come in and share that seemingly innocuous message, but really there's some subversive communist plot going on. It's the
Right.
same kind of thing here. And look, Elon, you can ask Elon Musk not to be a useful idiot. I think that's a fair question to ask, right?
Yeah.
But in the context of this, Don Lemon is trying to make it sound like he's not a useful idiot, that he's in favor of great replacement theory, and he's the one that's dog whistling here. He's the one trying to enlist other useful idiots to signal boost this stuff, which that just doesn't seem accurate.
Auschwitz with Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
So you said you learned your lesson. What did you learn?
I said I learned my lesson.
You said you learned your lesson when you apologized, and you said you went to Auschwitz. You saw what.
No, I was already aware of these things. And the nature of my comment that really inflamed people, what I was trying to say, and I did very quickly clarify, this is what I'm saying, is that a number of prominent Jewish philanthropists fund groups that they should really take a closer look at funding, because some of the groups they fund, I think, are anti-Semitic.
Yeah. Do you understand the connection between the two? There's a connection between, you said Democrats, the Great Replacement Theory, but when it comes to the actual Great Replacement Theory, originally it was started about Jewish people, as you said, flooding in the country, and then now people are using it for Democrats, saying the same thing about Democrats, flooding.
In my view, it's a simple matter of incentives.
Yeah.
I actually don't see an incentive for.
So this is a tactic that people who are in this kind of like, I'm just a neutral interviewer position always do, where they ask you a question that's some kind of attack or it's a gotcha or something. And then you say, well, that's not what I meant. This is what I mean. And it sort of diffuses the trap. And instead of they never give an acknowledgement, or they never build the question off of your answer. All they do is they just shift around to rephrase the same question again in a different way to try to trap you again, essentially.
Yeah, this is the you're an anti-Semite and won't admit it part of the interview, which is super uncomfortable, right?
Right. Because because Elon has said, and I disagree with him, and I think this is stupid, but he says that he thinks there's like this idea that the Democrats are intentionally wanting to bring in illegal immigrants to increase the population in blue states in order to increase their representation in the House and things of that nature, which doesn't really make sense because number one, you have Texas, right? You have a lot of red states that have an increased population in the first place. Number two, the increase, the House, the way the Electoral College is set up, which John Lemon actually brings up, which I think is a decent point. is actually to sort of help benefit the states with lower populations, not to help states with more population anyway. So and I don't think there's a conspiracy to bring it in. I think it's just flatly incompetence whatsoever. Now, I think you could say there's an argument here that I would agree with, which is that the Democrats don't really care about immigration to the effect that conservatives do. Number one, just intuitively, they don't care about it. And we've talked about the moral foundations of the left versus the right, but also because I think they are operating off of a delusional idea that is not true, that if you let that a lot of legal immigrants from Central and South America will all keep voting Democrat, which is something I think they're going to wake up to find is not the case, 10, 20 years down the road. So
maybe 10, 20 years, but I do think they're operating under the premise that the immigrants will vote Democrat or their family members will vote Democrat because they're worried about their family being deported. So I do think there is an argument there, and that is going on. And also, isn't Texas, like, aren't they trying to turn Texas blue? So if they have a large immigrant population there that starts voting Democrat,
yeah, but the problem is, and this is again why this theory doesn't really make sense, is that like there's a huge gap between people who are newly arrived legal immigrants that have the right to vote will probably be more likely to vote Democrat, even if they are socially conservative, because they view that the Democrats are sort of the ones like protecting them and the Republicans are not protecting them or trying to deport them. And that'll be the view. Whether that's true or not, that's how it will be viewed. But for like established families here who are, of Latin descent or Hispanic, most of them seem to lean a lot more socially conservative and economically libertarian. And when I've looked at polling data, and they also seem to be pretty anti-illegal immigration and pretty anti-soft on borders. Because a lot of people have an attitude of like, well, I came here legally, why should the door be open for a bunch of people, that came here illegally? Just because we might come from like the same continent or the same region or even the same country doesn't mean I'm going to support these people coming to my country.
We're arguing two different things here. I agree with you that their understanding and strategy is flawed and that this will not work. That doesn't mean that they don't believe it will work and are doing it for these reasons. So I think they do believe the strategy will work and that's why they're doing it.
I think they don't. No. So in terms of like, Elon's making a very specific position about the allowing or intentionally trying to bring illegal immigrants into the country to help the Democrats. And I'm saying there's a big difference. I 100% don't think that's the case whatsoever, because first of all, it's also very obvious right now as Biden and the Democrats are learning that when too many people are coming into the country, it's just going to make them lose elections. But there's a difference between saying we're going to basically allow people, we're going to incentivize people and tell people to come versus we're just not going to be concerned about it for a bunch of different reasons.
Well, they can't be concerned about it.
Well, I'm saying that they weren't concerned about it because it was a blind area for them. And now they're going to get boned on it. But I think that's very different than saying that they're like intentionally trying to bring illegals into the country. That's all I'm saying.
There's a bunch of articles on turning Texas blue by the Democrats. A blue Texas is within reach. September.
Yeah, but bringing illegal immigrants in the country isn't going to accomplish that because they can't vote in national elections.
I understand that.
Right.
But if they believe that strategy is going to work, they're bringing them in regardless.
No one believes that you can bring in illegal immigrants in the country and then they're going to be able to vote for president or something to that effect.
Elon addresses
I'm just
in here.
Okay,
it's not a matter of them voting. It's a matter of them getting more seats in Congress. Elon addresses that. Yes.
Okay, and I just explained why that sort of doesn't make sense, but okay, we can move on.
Well, look, a larger population with less people voting, if they're voting Democrat, they still get more seats. It's perfectly logical, right?
No, well, it might be for the House. It actually that's not true for the presidency.
Yeah, but the House matters. Yeah,
I know the House matters, right? And I know that there are some states that are trying to make it so that illegals can't vote, which I think is insane.
Yeah, look at that, even that.
Right.
So yeah, anyway, we can move on.
Jewish people to want to get legal immigration. I don't think there is such an incentive.
The Great Replacement Theory is a neo-Nazi trope. It's in the neo-Nazi manifesto. It's in the Turner Diaries. It's referenced by the Buffalo mass shooter.
Did I mention that Don Lemon is a piece of shit? I just want to make that perfectly clear here.
Right. So yeah. So basically, what's happening is that because Elon had the position about believing that there was this intention of bringing in illegals, Don is now attaching it to the Great Replacement Theory, and he's attaching it, which is different, and he's attaching it to specifically the anti-Semitic Great Replacement Theory, and now he's even going further, saying, "Oh, you're supporting something that like neo-Nazis and mass shooters support, right?" So now he's associating this with Elon Musk.
Right.
And
Yes.
remember, at the beginning of this interview, Don Lemon is like, "I can't imagine why Elon Musk wouldn't want me on the platform."
Yeah. Because you're a dishonest piece of shit. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
In his manifesto, where 10 people, black people, were murdered in Buffalo. His actual title of the Christchurch Shooters Manifesto. 51 people in the Muslim mosque were murdered. 23 people murdered in El Paso by a shooter who used the same language that you use in that manifesto when you say Hispanic invasion. Is that not?
I didn't say an Hispanic invasion.
And you quoted a tweet that called it a Hispanic invasion.
If I quote something, it doesn't mean I agree with everything in it. It's just something that I think this is something worth people should consider.
Why would you quote something that you didn't believe?
Because anything I quote is going to have a whole range of statements. Doesn't mean I agree with everything in it.
Do you think if you moderated yourself more, if there was better content moderation on the platform, that you wouldn't have to answer these questions from reporters about the great replacement theory as it relates
I
to
don't have to
Democrats,
answer these
the
questions.
great replacement theory as it relates to Jewish people? Do you think that?
I don't have to answer questions from a reporter.
Do you like, so it's like, you think that if you had more woke moderation, you wouldn't basically have bad faith actors like me try to put words in your mouth?
Yeah, exactly. You think if you did everything I want you to do, I wouldn't personally be attacking you right now? Yeah, Don, I do, actually, because you're a piece of shit.
That was really bad.
Reporters. Don, the only reason I'm doing this interview is because you're on the X platform and you asked for it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I would not do this interview.
So you don't think that
Elon, we're on the X platform. Look, we're asking.
Do you think that you wouldn't get in trouble, or you wouldn't be criticized for these things?
I'm criticized constantly. I could care less.
You don't care?
No, I don't.
Why
care.
not?
I don't think people should care what the media thinks about them. They're terrible judges of character.
Even someone who has one of the biggest social media and biggest information platforms in the world, you don't care? You don't think that you have any X.com, or you have any responsibility to the truth or moderating the platform?
You're conflating the truth with the media, and I think the media is not truthful.
Well, not with just the media. I mean, just the truth in general.
I care about the truth very much. That's why we have, for example, community notes on the X system, where in order for community note to surface and provide corrective information.
Okay, so he just kind of explains how community notes work, which is fine. But
look, and the miscommunicate. Look, Don Lemon wouldn't know the truth if it came up and slapped him in the face. So it's just comical that he's the one talking about this, especially after the previous line of questioning, which is devoid of any truth. Just basically lies designed to smear somebody.
Mm-hmm.
This interview is, I mean, this interview encapsulates everything that's wrong with the media. It's so ironic.
It feels like this interview is sort of a, like, I don't know if Don Lemon has a non-compete. I don't know exactly what's going on here, but this interview does feel like a tryout for some other like left-wing outlet or mainstream outlet to pick him up. Like, look how I, attack Elon Musk.
That could be. Don Lemon is not doing a lot of thinking, but I guarantee you his agent is doing a lot of thinking on how he can make a 20% commission off of Don Lemon's next gig. Yeah. So I'm sure he's whispering in his ear, "Oh, this is what you do. Look, we'll have you on MSNBC in no time.
I'm trying to find.
Don't worry, you don't have to do that new media yourself, Don. I know it's a big pain."
Right. I'm trying to find this tweet that Elon retweeted that said the words Hispanic invasion. But I
Oh,
see all
yeah.
these articles talking about this conversation, but none of them actually seem to have the receipts for whatever this thing was that he quote tweeted.
Oh, imagine that.
No, it's interesting.
Well, maybe he deleted it.
Yeah, but usually, I mean, that would still be
Yeah,
saved
there'd be
somewhere.
screenshots
There'd be a
in
screenshot
the
or something like,
articles and
oh my
whatnot.
God,
Yeah.
Elon Musk said there's Hispanic invasion or something. I'm just surprised I don't see it anywhere.
Links to it.
Scale.
It doesn't concern you that hate speech has gone. Research shows that it's gone up on the platform since you took over. That's not concerning to you?
I believe that is false. In fact, the research that I've seen says it went down.
The study from the Institute of Strategic Dialogue found that anti-Semitic tweets doubled from June 22 to February 2023. One study reported that as many as 86% of the posts reported for hateful content remained up after being reported. Hate speech on the platform is up.
So what they will typically do is they will count the number of posts, but not count the number of views. So what matters is, was that post given high visibility, or what did like one person see it? And if you look at the number of views of how many times was hate content viewed on our platform, it is down substantially.
Yeah. Well, that's not was what the study shows. And you said you like transparency. I'm going to show you this, and
Don, you can get a study that will tell you whatever you want.
But these are just a handful of extremely. If you look at
So, okay, before he gets into this, which is pretty funny. So, but this shows that, to me, kind of what you were saying, that Don is stupid. He's like not able to engage with the information because, so they're both saying things that could be true simultaneously, which Elon has said, which is that you can have a study that says that the gross number, the total number of anti-Semitic or racist tweets has increased, but that the amount of viewership or impressions of those tweets has decreased. Those can both be true at the same time. And it's interesting to me that Don's like brain can't handle that information.
Yeah, he doesn't get it. And he tries to explain it to him like 15 times and he still can't get it. It's like, yes, it's up. We're leaving it up, but we're not boosting it.
We'll see, but
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like if Don was actually paying attention, able to process information, the follow-up question that he should ask would be, well, you said that you don't want to take down things unless they're like illegal, and you don't necessarily want to take down things that some people consider hate speech, but you're saying that these things are not getting impressions. Does that mean that X has a policy where they're intentionally deboosting, things that are considered hate speech or anti-Semitic? Right.
Yeah.
That would be the follow-up question you'd ask.
Are you shadow banning hateful content?
Right, exactly.
But he doesn't want to ask that question, Sitch, because the answer is yes. And that is a form of moderation that goes against his narrative. His narrative right now that he wants to prove to the world is that X is not doing any form of moderation. Right. When in fact they are. Like what? That is a form of moderation.
I'd be curious because like both the studies that Don and Elon are referring to, I think were from like a year ago or longer.
Oh, okay. So it's completely out of date.
Yeah, I feel from my personal experience of X that they're out of date because, I mean, just from what I've seen, it seems like the amount of racist posts and anti-Semitic posts that are allowed on X is vastly higher than it's ever been, in my opinion, and get vastly more likes and views than I've seen, before Elon bought Twitter. So I think things have changed.
Yeah, I agree. I see more of that stuff. This is what I was talking about in the beginning. That is the interesting conundrum, because you do want the platform to be free speech, but you also don't want it to be so terrible, so uninviting that people don't actually want to use the platform. So, and I do think if you're some sort of free speech absolutist, it's just going to devolve into like a racist nightmare. Like you're going to be seeing racist profanity in your timeline like 10 times a day. Who wants to see that?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's not what the study shows. And you said you like transparency. I'm going to show you this, and
Don, you can get a study that will tell you whatever you want.
But these are just a handful of extremely. You look at those anti-Semitic and racist tropes and tweets, and as of this morning, they're still on X.
This is so comical. This is so comical because
Yeah,
he's
so yeah,
saying,
so he goes through all the so he's going through all these. Well, here's what's interesting too, and maybe I should have done this before, because he's like posting all these, anti-Semitic tweets that he's like, oh, these still exist on the platform. But if you
right,
notice, they cut out like the likes or
how many views
retweets.
they have. Yeah,
Right. So
exactly.
that's what I'm curious about. Like, do they have a lot of interaction?
Now, do
You
you
know?
think if it was 10,000 retweets that they would be cutting that out, Sitch? I kind of doubt it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah, I would have thought. If they were blowing up,
Right.
so
If it's got 4 retweets, that's why they cut it out. They're like, oh, nobody's seeing this. But then Don Lemon goes out, look, these racist things, we shouldn't let the public see these. So let me copy them, put them right in front of your face, and put them in my video that's going to get a
right.
million views. Let me signal boost this hateful content
Hmm.
so I can make a impression on you.
Right.
And from your own content policy, these posts should have been deleted. So why haven't they been deleted? Why are they still there? Did you?
We delete things if they are illegal.
But these have been up there for a while.
Are they illegal?
They're not illegal, but
What a dumbass. Sitch, this is amazing. What a dumbass.
they're hateful, and they can lead to violence. As I just read to you, the shooters.
And he just like asserts it. Yeah, it can lead to violence, just like the shooter,
Mhm.
mentioned something.
In all of these mass shootings, attributed social media to radicalizing.
So
them.
Don, you love censorship, is what you're saying.
No, I don't love censorship.
Then why are you asking?
I believe in moderation, but I don't believe in
Censorship moderation.
So before we get into this, because there is an interesting question about like what's the difference, like where's the line? So, but again, like Don is so dumb in how he's engaging with this question, because the way to engage with it is to say, okay, you're saying you don't want to remove anything unless it's illegal. And that can be a policy that the X platform or any platform decides to engage in, and that's fine. But how come your stated content policy on your website doesn't say that? How come it does say that it's a violation to, promote and talk about hate speech, and that you can still report things for hate speech? Why is what you're saying here not what it says on your website? Like, how do people know what violates the rules of X?
Sitch, that would actually require taking in what Elon Musk is saying and actually using your brain to like come up with a follow-up question.
Yeah,
Which is like
doing these interviews,
which is beyond Don
Right.
Lemon's ability.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like
I
you
mean,
and I are
'cause-
practiced at this because we talk back and forth all the time. We're forced to
Right.
listen to one another and respond.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do think that there's something that Elon should be held accountable for, which is that contradiction. Is that okay? If you want to make X a free speech platform, you say the only thing we're going to not allow is things that are blatantly illegal. That's fine, but just make that very clear. That is not clear in the content policy of X whatsoever. And I think the reason that it's not clear is because obviously that would cause a lot more problems with advertisers and other things that wouldn't want to be on the platform.
Yeah, the real gotcha interview would be something to the effect of, I understand that you're leaving the content up, but you are shadow banning content as a form of moderation.
Well, are you? That's the question.
Well,
Like, are they actually doing it? I don't know.
He says that. I mean,
You're
he's saying, look, we leave it up, but we make sure people don't see it. How is that not
Mhm.
shadow banning?
If that's what's going on, yes. 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
But that is a real gotcha question here for Elon Musk, and the question that a lot of people would be on board with Don Lemon asking. But no, he doesn't understand that. He just wants to ban
Right.
everything. Ban it all.
Now,
Moderation
I
is-
did look up one of those Twitter accounts that Don Lemon
Pulled
you know,
up.
pulled up, and it does actually have a lot of followers.
Oh, really?
And it does have it says end Jewish supremacy in its bio. And it does have a lot of like really racist, a lot of really blatantly anti-Semitic things on its timeline, a lot of like very direct, Jewish question stuff. Like they have a post where they're blaming that Jews created, porn and pedophilia and abortion and LGBT and everything, and saying like literally like pushing the Jewish question stuff. And this post has 2,000 likes on it. So I mean, this is what I'm saying. There definitely, in my estimation, has been a massive increase in allowing just blatant anti-Semitism, blatant racism on the site, which, if Elon wants that to be the position of X, that's fine, but you have to just be open that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. That is a tough line to walk, right? He's kind of backed himself into a corner by calling himself a free speech absolutist, because I don't know that you can run a profitable business as a free speech absolutist. I just think this is where commerce and speech rights collide.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was weird. I don't know if you heard that. It was super weird. I had the Twitter space. There's all the Christ King stuff going on
Yes.
with and Lauren Chen had some Twitter space that someone sent me that I should listen to. And as we were talking about and saying that there's like a bunch of anti-Semitic stuff that they say in it, but I don't know because I haven't heard it yet. And I have it on my phone to listen to at some point, and just started playing like right in the middle as you're talking.
Okay.
It's like, they're listening. X is listening to us.
It's a propaganda word for censorship.
But don't you think free speech is one thing, right? Or not,
Look, if something's illegal, we're going to take it down. If it's not illegal, then we're putting our thumb on the scale and we're being censors.
You're putting your thumb on the scale for moderating hate speech. I mean, you don't put out child pornography. That's not...
It's illegal.
Some people would say that's considered censorship. I'm just saying.
What the... This is the dumbest person on the planet.
I was thinking like it is like obviously it is a form of censorship. You can be in favor of forms of censorship, but everyone has to be clear. Like, it's so weird. People just don't want to be clear with what's going on here.
But he brings up an example that's obviously illegal. It's like, what a dope. What a moron.
No, I literally, Don, I literally said, if something is legal, okay, we will obviously remove it.
Okay.
But if it is not legal, the laws in this country are put forward by the citizens. We're a democracy. If those laws are put in place by the people, we adhere to those laws.
Okay, I
agree.
agree.
To the laws of others. If you go beyond the law, you're actually going beyond the will of the people.
Okay, agreed with the law. But if you are doing something that promotes hate and violence and ultimately leads to killing, you don't feel you have any responsibility not to do that? When the people who are doing it admittedly are saying...
There's articles all the time that lead to violence and killing. Don't they? Shouldn't they? Like, you're applying a differential standard to.
But that would never be in mainstream media. These types of images, that type of language, those things would never be. We'd never, when I was in mainstream media, we'd never promote things that would be anti-Semitic. We would never promote things that would.
Anti-Semitic either.
Did you not see those?
You said promote. If content is on the platform, that doesn't mean we promote it.
But that wouldn't be on a platform for mainstream media at all.
No, but you can think of that. That's because the mainstream media has like, whatever, 20 articles a day. We have 500 million posts today.
Okay, understood.
500 million.
Does it bother you? How do you feel about that when you see it?
I obviously disagree with that. I think it's not good at all. It's terrible.
But you don't want to get rid of it on the platform, or at least moderate it.
The rules. What you're suggesting is censorship that goes beyond the law. And what I'm saying is that we, I guess, have a disagreement, because I do not believe in censorship that goes beyond the law, and you do. We have a difference of opinion in that regard.
I understand that, but these are your own rules on your own platform. These go against the rules on your platform. That's why I'm asking you. If you said, listen, we allow everything, but that's not what your content rules say, and that's why I'm asking you, why are they still there? Your own content policy. That's why I'm asking you that, not because...
Which part of our content policy says that we should delete these things?
Your content policy talks about hate speech.
Yes, we don't promote hate speech.
And so you don't consider that hate speech?
Did you look at the content policy? I guess we have to dig into the content policy, because if it says we don't promote hate speech, that just means they don't
Let's see.
Use the
I'll bring it
algorithm
up.
to signal boost it. Doesn't necessarily mean they delete it. Yeah.
They do say that they don't allow like uh let's see. This is on Twitter's policies. Safety. They talk about violent speech, child exploitation, abuse, harassment, and then it says right here, hateful conduct. You may not attack other people on the basis of race, ethnicity, national origin, caste, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious affiliation, age, disability, or serious disease.
Okay. That sounds pretty woke.
Um, yeah, it says, what is violate? And then if you hit on learn more, it says, what is the violation of this policy? This has been updated April 2023. So this is after Elon has acquired X. It says, hateful references. We prohibit targeting individuals or groups with content that references forms of violence or violent events where a protected category was the primary target of victims where the intent is to harass. That includes but is not limited to media or text that refers to or depicts genocides or lynching. And then it talks about incitement. We prohibit inciting behavior that targets individuals or groups of people belonging to protected categories. This includes inciting fear or spreading fearful stereotypes about a protected category, including asserting that members of a protected category are more likely to take part in dangerous or illegal activities. Example, all, quote, religious group are terrorists. Inciting others to harass members of a protected category on or off the platform. Inciting others to discriminate in the form of denial of support to economic enterprise. Slurs and tropes. We prohibit targeting others with repeated slurs, tropes, or other content that intends to degrade or reinforce negative or harmful stereotypes about a protected category. In some cases, such as, but not limited to, severe repetitive use of slurs or racist, sexist tropes, the context is to harass or intimidate others. We may require post removal. In other cases, such as but not limited to moderate, isolated usage where the context is to harass or intimidate others, we may limit post visibility. So I guess maybe that's like the wiggle room they give you is like this quote repetitive use. So like you can kind of use slurs and racism to some extent, and they'll only limit it, but they won't get rid of it unless it's too repetitive, I guess.
Well, they want to have a policy that covers all their bases, but it sounds like they have a super broad policy, but they are not necessarily enacting that policy in full force.
Yeah.
They could.
Well, yeah. They could, but that's what I'm saying. Like if Don was actually like a good interview here, I mean that's the question I would ask Elon is like, well, okay, it's just your position doesn't seem to align with the stated content policy on X.
Yeah, he's done a terrible job in this part of the interview, obviously. Right. If he's trying to get him, he should actually have the policy and say, here's the policy. Yeah.
Oh, so we have a $50 super chat. Thank you so much, Brian, for $50. Thank you. Says the argument is they get more votes in the House, and that it's the Democrats' policy to give illegal immigrants a path to citizenship to gain votes in the Latin community. In the meantime, Democrats will push for illegal immigrants to vote. Yeah, I mean, I understand like that's the idea. I don't believe that that's happening or that that's even the goal. I know that that's what people say is the goal. And I actually looked it up. I think there's like one state, I don't remember which one it is. I can't find it, which seems weird, that allows undocumented immigrants to vote only in local elections because it's actually illegal on a federal level for any alien legal or illegal to vote in any federal election for any reason whatsoever.
So you think the Democrats are lax on immigration simply because they don't want to get hit with a racist stick?
Well, for two reasons. One, they don't want to get hit with a racism stick. And then number two, because as we've talked about, the left-wing intuition is to believe that harm comes from within systems and not from outside systems.
I don't accept that within.
Okay, well, so, that's fine. You don't accept that, but that's how I view the left-right dichotomy.
I know.
And so that's why, so the right who views that problems come from external, outside the system, infiltrating it would be very hyper aware of the, quote, threat of illegal immigrants, while the people on the left would view them not through that lens and be more like care harm, empathetically focused. Like these are just poor people who want to work in our country,
Yeah, we should do an entire stream on the within without because I think there are a bunch of counter arguments against it, but I don't want to get into it right now.
Okay, that's fine. But yeah, so I'm just saying I think it's just these intuitions create a blind spot. The right has many intuitions that create a blind spot, obviously for their own issues. I think this creates a blind spot as opposed to a intentional desire that you're going to bring in illegal citizens into the country. And then you're going to also somewhere 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road, somehow pass a law that would change the existing law. You're going to get enough votes to somehow pass a law that's going to get it so that you can somehow manifest this law that would be highly unpopular to get illegal immigrants the ability to vote in federal elections. Just doesn't seem like it makes sense to me.
Right. But you do understand that they obviously, I've made the argument again and again. I'm assuming you understand that you don't think that they believe the narrative. You think they're doing it for other reasons. Okay, we can move on.
Yeah.
Not understanding what I'm saying. There's if there's you can find you can sign up right now and do 100 things that are hateful, but if nobody reads it, it doesn't matter. So you can think of X as being, it's much like the internet. It's not some tiny publication with like 20 articles a day. It's 500 million.
But everyone has the opportunity to read it, Elon.
What? It's Sitch.
Yeah, it's pretty stupid.
How do you say that? How do you say that? Like, he just is not tracking the conversation at all. He has no idea what's going on here. But they have the opportunity to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I could find it and put it on my show. At least make an argument, dude.
Right.
And they want the opportunity to read the internet. Are you suggesting we should shut down the internet?
No, but you don't own the internet. I'm asking you about you and your responsibility and your platform. And so I see how you feel now. You don't agree. We don't agree on this.
Yes, you want censorship and I don't.
No, I don't want censorship at all.
Yes, you do.
No, I want responsibility. I think there.
You desperately want censorship.
No, if I want a censorship.
You want censorship so bad you can taste it.
No, that's not true. It's not true. I think that there's right and wrong. And I think that,
you want censorship.
and I think that when you have a platform that's as big as yours and as powerful as yours and as influential as yours, and you are a person of consequence to the world with what you do, that there is a certain responsibility that goes along with what you have on your platform and what you put out to the world. And I think that's important. You don't see that responsibility?
I think we have a responsibility to adhere to the law, and if people want the law changed, they should talk to their elected representative and get the law changed, and then we will adhere to the law.
Okay.
But if you want us to go beyond the law, that is us deciding to be censors.
So,
and I'm against censorship. I'm in favor of freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And freedom of speech only is relevant when people you don't like say things you don't like. Otherwise, it has no meaning.
But I do think that
this is completely opposite of what the movie industry did, because the movie industry, the government was basically saying, look, your movies are getting dirtier and dirtier. There's more nudity and profanity. We're going to have to come in and regulate you. And the movie industry was like, okay, we'll regulate ourselves. Please don't regulate us, right? And that's when they came up with the entire movie rating system. So it's interesting that he has a direct opposite approach. He's like, no, you go regulate us, right? We don't need to regulate ourselves.
That is interesting, because that's also that idea of like, we don't want to get regulated by the government, which, most industries don't. So it makes
right,
sensible.
Exactly.
Right. But so then their take is, okay, so then we're going to self-regulate and self-impose these regulations.
Right.
And,
yeah.
that's why a lot of these regulations exist, or why a lot of these content policies exist in the first place, even beyond, obviously, advertisers, don't want to be on platforms generally where there's a lot of just racism and bigotry and things of that nature.
Yeah, this is where I 1000% disagree with Elon, because look at Great Britain. Look, the last thing I want them to do is to codify hate speech into law.
Right.
Like, let's avoid that at all cost, right?
Well, I think he's saying it kind of in this context of like, because he doesn't think it's going to happen. Like, it seems unlikely that something will happen. So it's kind of like,
Yeah. We're at a different place. Yeah. Before, when the movie industry, when they were threatening to regulate the movie industry.
Yeah, that was going to happen.
The heavy hand of government was coming down.
Yeah. It was. Yeah.
There should be guardrails. And I believe in free speech as much as you. I would fight. I don't disagree. I don't agree with a lot of what you put out on social media, but I will fight for your right to be able to say it.
Great.
Yeah. Okay, so listen, let's talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. All right, that's been a target of yours lately on X. There was a repost of Ben Shapiro that you claim that DE.
I don't believe for a second. Well, this is why it's annoying, like because people kind of we have these like very vague general topics about like what is someone says like I'm in favor of free speech. Like when Don Lemon says he's in favor of free speech and Elon Musk says he's in favor of free speech, they mean different things. And it's kind of useless in the conversation for Don to just agree and for not to actually parse out like what do these things mean in this context. Like, does
Right.
Don just mean just thinks that the government shouldn't be able to go after people? But for Elon, he thinks that that applies more to, when it comes to a town square type environment like X or other social media platforms that should apply in that regard.
Yeah, yeah. Look, Don Lemon's all over the place. He
Yeah,
just basically was advocating for Elon Musk to delete those racist tweets, right? Everyone agrees
sure.
they're racist, but the fact Don Lemon is going to fight for that guy's right to post those racist tweets, give me a
No,
break.
he's not, obviously not. Yeah,
Yeah,
so they have different, they have different beliefs on what they want to do, which is fine, but just let's all have we have to have an open conversation about what exactly it is that we're advocating for.
yeah, exactly. But he comes off as a liar when he says that. Like how
Right,
he said that right after he's like, you got to delete this stuff. And then I will fight for your right to say whatever you want. Come on.
right.
DEI is killing people. Specifically, you point to medicine. You claim that DEI programs are putting people at risk. Do you really believe this to be true? And what evidence do you have to support it?
What I was referring to there was that if we lower the standards for doctors, such so that they, if the test for a doctor is lowered, then the probability of them making a mistake and killing someone is obviously going to be higher.
Wait, say that again. I'm not sure I understand what you said. I want to make sure I understand what you're saying.
Yes, if the standards for passing medical exams and becoming a doctor, or especially something like a surgeon, if the standards are lowered, then the probability that the surgeon will make a mistake is higher. They're making mistakes in their exam. They may make mistakes with people, and that may result in people dying.
What evidence do you have, though, that they're lowering the standards? There's no evidence of that.
I believe there is.
There's no evidence of that, Elon. What is the evidence?
I believe they have literally lowered the standards at Duke University, and that is what the article was referring to.
There's no
Are you
evidence
saying they
of
have
that.
not lowered the standards?
There's no evidence about lowering standards, and I think that there is.
I believe that is a false statement you're making.
Okay, well, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I think
the interesting thing is when this is posted on the X platform, there will be a whole bunch of things that rebut what you said and what I said.
Right.
And so people can then make their own decision based on the replies and the rebuttals and the community notes.
I think that's fair, but I do think that on this particular topic, I do think that you and Ben Shapiro are reaching in about this, because there was what Ben posted said that he gave instances of people who were deliberately harming people. Nowhere in the thread does Ben suggest at all, I should say, that anyone is being killed as a result of DEI. That's
Well, here, okay. Do you notice how like the topic has now shifted? So Don said, well, where's an example of them lowering standards? And then Elon said, well, there's something with Duke University. And instead of kind of delving into that, like, well, what is the specific thing that Duke has done that you're referring to? Or like, what's going on here? He's now, even though he seems to know what he's talking about, because he's referencing a Ben Shapiro Twitter thread, which is where this kind of idea about Duke lowering standards originated from. So he seems to know what he's talking about. He's now shifted the topic to, well, has DI killed anybody?
Right,
Which is a completely
exactly.
different thing. And so, and also like the concept of like that they're not lowering standards for DI purposes is obviously insane, because we've seen colleges across the country have experimented. Now, a lot of them are going back on it because they realize it's a huge mistake. They experimented for a few years with dropping SAT scores,
Yeah.
which was done 100% entirely to try to, improve their DEI score and to get more diversity in the school. So that's obviously a lowering of standards. There was the thing that he was talking about was that there was a quote of someone at Duke who was saying that they've used a completely different holistic review process, abandoning all sorts of metrics and screenings, and that's what he's talking about.
Well, they have a point system now. So if you get
Right.
like 200 points for being African American, then that's 200 points that you can score lower on your SAT, which is tangibly lowering the standard.
Exactly, right,
Yeah.
right. Now, Duke has since claimed that they're not doing this, but I don't know what. I'd have to like see what exactly their statement is and what their standards are because they very often use kind of weasel words to get around this. Because as you said, and this is, and I think Elon does kind of a bad job of explaining this. If these schools have point systems, which we found out they do from the lawsuit,
From the and the
okay,
Supreme Court case. Yeah, they talk about
yes,
it explicitly.
yes. If we find out that they do have point systems where they're saying, well, we're going to give you extra points for being black or being Hispanic or a woman or whatever they're giving you extra points for, that means that they are saying that you can get less points in these other areas, which means that they are essentially lowering, not even essentially, they are explicitly lowering the standards for certain people to be able to get into school. And it showed that weird chart where even a lot of people on the left had to acknowledge that this was like really fucked up, where if you were black and like in like the lowest percentile of people that they would allow in, you had a higher chance of being allowed to get into Harvard than if you were Asian in the highest percentile of like academic achievement.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
obviously there's shenanigans going on here that are based entirely on race.
Yep. Yeah.
That's purely speculative.
Look, and that's what pisses me off. He totally asserts. He's like, that's a lie. Just because you don't know it, dipshit, doesn't mean it's a lie.
Yeah.
There's research on DEI and medicine, and there's no evidence that standards are being lowered, that DEI is affecting.
See, how can he say this? Like, he's so uninformed. They talk about this
Yeah.
explicitly in the Supreme Court case. They just had a giant Supreme Court case on this.
Yes. Yes.
Medicine. Actually, like only 5% of doctors are black, and a small percent.
Yeah,
Well,
I think.
And then, like, what is happening here, Sitch? And then he goes to, like, only 5% of doctors are black, which seems to be an argument that we need to lower the standards to get more black doctors.
Right. Right.
It's like, what are you talking about, dude?
And the video that Elon was talking about that Ben Shapiro put up, it was a Zoom call of people at Duke who work for Duke, and he literally says that they're abandoning all sorts of metrics and adopting a completely holistic application process in order to recruit more women and non-white surgeons. Okay, so he's literally saying that whatever the metrics that they had before were giving them too many white people and too many men, and so they have to change all those metrics to get more women and non-white people.
Yeah. And then Don is saying that, well, there's so few black doctors that they can't be lowering the standards. I guess that's his argument. I'm not sure.
I mean, does he not understand how like things take time to change? Like,
well, the whole idea, and this is the thing, because so many people on the left are in contradiction. There are a bunch of people on the left who are like, well, if black people are forced to engage in white academic standards, they're abandoning their culture and they're giving in to the man. That's critical race theory.
right.
So they want to promote critical race theory, and at the same time, they also want black people's achievement standards to stay high with everyone else's.
Mm-hmm.
It's total contradiction. So much of this stuff I blame on this critical social justice garbage, because it's all the best of intentions, but it has exactly the opposite outcome that anybody wants. The social justice advocates included.
Lowered. That DEI is affecting medicine. Actually, like only 5% of doctors are black, and a small percent.
Yeah, I think you'll find that when this is posted to the X platform, that people will reply to it with evidence. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's see.
Okay. So, but that's my whole thing about moderation. Maybe you're wrong, but you'll put it out there. You don't know if it's right. Do you think that your responsibility to make sure something is right before you, the person who owns it, Elon?
The irony, Sitch. The irony.
I know.
Don Lemon is spreading fake news right now. He knows nothing about this topic, and he's castigating Elon Musk for doing what he himself is doing. What a moron.
Musk is a huge figure in the world. That you should know that it's true, that there are people at X who can get research for you before you put something out there like that. That's not necessarily true, even in other examples.
If I say something that is inaccurate, I'm immediately corrected on the platform. That's the advantage of a real-time system like X. So they'll be immediately in the replies, people correcting me. There'll be a community note that will correct me, which is attached to the actual post itself.
Do you think as many people read
Yes.
You think as many people read that as it reads your tweet?
Yes, in fact, and if there's a community note that happens later that where somebody didn't see, but they replied to that or interacted with that post, we will notify them that there is now a community note correcting that post.
Mm-hmm. Just so you.
Whereas if you consider the conventional media, that doesn't happen. Conventional media makes false statements all the time and nobody ever hears the correction.
When I was in conventional media, I can only speak for myself. If I got something wrong, or if someone got something wrong on the platform that I was on, it was corrected, and we made sure that it was corrected. Now, I can't speak for anyone else.
I don't think that's a universal situation.
It didn't. No, I don't remember. Kind of vaguely remember when we covered it. Didn't Don Lemon say some like insane stuff about Kyle Rittenhouse?
He did, yeah, he did. I looked for the clip because I saw it on the live show when I was watching CNN, but I could never find the clip of him saying it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When the first videos went viral, and we kind of watched the videos ahead of time, so the mainstream media was coming in a day late on it, and his comments on it were just completely incendiary. He said something to the effect of, a white kid shoots into a crowd of Black Lives Matter protesters because he disagrees with them politically. And I'm like, that's not what happened. You crazy person.
Yeah, and I remember he also suggested that the judge in the Kyle Rittenhouse case was like maybe racist and biased in favor of Kyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the umpteenth time here, though, in this exchange, Don Lemon has no idea what he's talking about, because he's saying, look, when I was on CNN, we made sure that a retraction went up. Yeah, but nobody saw it because the retraction went up at the end of the show when everyone had already tuned out, like after the commercials. He doesn't get that in the mainstream media, the story gets 10 times the attention as the retraction does. Like, that's just a fact. So, and the fact that he doesn't acknowledge that, this community note thing, I didn't even know this was going on, but I kind of want to test it out
No, it does. Yeah. If you quote or reply or tweet something that gets noted, it sends you a little notification.
That's great. That's so much better than the news media. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Don Lemon doesn't even understand the argument that Elon is making here.
Okay. So I just the research. So when you talk, do you believe that people are dying because medical standards, DEI is causing medical standards to be lowered? Do you actually believe people are dying because of that?
I believe that if we lower the standards for what it takes to become a doctor.
You're saying if we lower the standards,
yes.
But do you believe people are dying because the standards are being lowered?
I don't think that is yet an issue, but it could become an issue.
Okay. But the actual evidence in history shows the exact opposite. If you look at how minorities are treated by the medical system, most doctors now are white, and there are lots of mistakes in medicine. So you're saying that white doctors have bad medical care? I'm trying to understand your.
What is he even trying to say here? Like,
he's saying he's like, a lot of people are dying from these white doctors, Elon.
Yeah, a lot of white doctors suck. Lots of doctors, period, suck. It has nothing to do with being white or whatever. He's just saying that don't lower the standards to get into medical school. It's like very fucking simple.
Well, no, he's NPC talking points are getting frazzled in his brain right now, because there is the NPC talking point that black people get worse healthcare treatment.
Right.
That their pain is not acknowledged, their symptoms are ignored, and they die because of this bad treatment. He's kind of conflating that NPC talking point with this other NPC talking point about how we're not lowering DEI standards and everything is on the up and up.
Logic here when it comes to DEI, because there's no actual evidence of what you're saying.
No, I said, so if the standards, like let's say, I think that particular thing was referring to surgeons. Let's say a surgeon is asked to, a surgeon in training is asked to do a series of operations under the supervision of a senior surgeon, and they get a bunch of those operations wrong. If that happens, and yet they are still approved to be a surgeon, the probability that someone will die, I think, at some point is high.
Okay, I understand that, but that's a hypothetical. That doesn't mean it's happening.
I didn't say it's happening.
You didn't say it was happening.
I said it will.
But
I said if we lower standards, people will die.
Oh my
Why is
God.
this so complicated?
And then he has like such a condescending
Yes.
laugh. Ha 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 ha. I am Don Lemon. Ha 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 ha.
But why respond to something or put something out there that has not happened? Because I could say,
Because I don't want it to happen. I think we don't want to lower standards.
okay, if you look at the history of the medical industry, especially when it comes to Black Americans, it shows the exact opposite. If you look at the Tuskegee experiment and on, only 5% of doctors.
Look, he's bringing in the Tuskegee experiments.
What does that have to do with anything?
Nothing. It has nothing to do
In
with
the year
anything.
2024, we're talking about the Tuskegee experiments.
Right. They experimented on Black Americans. Yes, and it was disgusting.
Yeah.
Okay?
Doctors are in America are Black. All of them are white. So are you saying that if the majority of doctors are white, are you saying that and there are still these inequities, right? And there's still mistakes. Are you blaming DEI for that?
No, I'm very, very, very basically saying that if we lower standards for what it takes to become a board-certified surgeon or, an oncologist or something where the kind of disease we're talking about, if you make a mistake, causes someone to die, then more people will die than if we don't lower the standards. Therefore, we should not lower the standards.
But why do you think
If we lower the standards in journalism, Sitch, and we let a bunch of dumb people become journalists because, look, we're going to get a bunch of lies and untruths in the media. Pretty simple.
they're lowering the standards for minority doctors or women doctors or?
That's what that's what that article suggested. Yes, at Duke University.
Okay. The evidence that I have shows that that's not true.
Okay.
So listen, after the door blew off this mid-flight in this Alaskan Airlines flight, do you remember that? You responded to a post claiming that the average HBCU grad was less intelligent than the average airline pilot, and stated that it will take an airplane crashing and killing hundreds of people for them to change this crazy policy of DIE. I don't know if did you misspell it on purpose, which it should be DEI. Do you believe that women and minority pilots are inherently less intelligent and less skilled than white male pilots?
No, I'm just saying that we should not lower the standards for them.
Okay.
But how are they going to get in? Elon.
Here's the problem that is having the conversation. So like Don is assuming, because he assumes that like it's just like everything's just racist, that
Of course.
that there would be a completely proportional equal amount of all people of all races in every field, including being doctors and pilots, if only the people who were letting people into med school, if only people that are making hiring decisions for airlines or for hospitals were not themselves racist. And if they weren't themselves racist, then there'd be a completely proportional equal and like number of all these things.
Yeah, he believes
Which is
that.
not the case. That's not what's going on here.
He doesn't even accept that they've had to lower standards.
Right.
I mean, they didn't know this was going to be the case, but they started actively pursuing minority candidates, and they realized their academic achievements weren't up to snuff. Now, I would argue the reason is because a lot of these critical social justice movements basically say, you're giving into the colonialist ethos if you live up to the academic achievements of the white man. They're basically working against themselves here.
Yeah. Well, the problem is, it's like when you have these conversations, it's a total Mott and Bailey thing. Because you say like, okay, well, wait a minute. I don't think that these colleges or hospitals or airlines, the person making the hiring decisions or the admission decisions is like racist and is saying, I'm not going to let Black people in or women in or whatever. And they say, when you actually confront them, I don't know if Don would do this because he's stupid, but if we were having a conversation with someone on the internet, they'd say, oh, no, that's not what's happening. What's happening is systemic racism. Okay, it's because of the history of racism and the history of segregation and slavery and all this stuff. It's basically put like from a broad, large historical perspective, it's put a lot of people who are black or not white into, because of their family history, into lower income situations that has basically made it harder for them to succeed in the modern year.
That's
Which,
true. I agree with that.
right, but that's the kind of what's annoying in the conversation, because you say, okay, well, that's entirely true, and I agree with that. But then the solution to that is very different. The solution to that is going to be a difficult problem, but you can't solve that problem by then saying, okay, well, now we're going to just lower the standards.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Because that's
Yeah.
not going to help anyone.
Yeah. Well, the whole idea that, I mean, you're fostering a culture that kind of disincentivizes and demotivates people from achieving the high academic standards needed to be a doctor, a surgeon, all these professions that we're talking about. So I mean, if you got to pick, like, either you want to pursue this critical social justice, the white man sucks, and we need to hang on to our own anti-colonial culture, right?
Right.
If you want to go down that path, okay, fine. Not many black doctors and attorneys, right?
Right.
Well, I guess there are, because some people will buck that trend.
Of course, there's lots of black doctors and black
Yeah,
attorneys
exactly.
that are people who are very motivated to succeed in life, just like a white doctor, a white lawyer, and they just do whatever.
But it might not get up to the proportion that they're after. They're like, look, it's got to completely mirror society, otherwise there's systemic racism. And this is like the metric that they've chosen to discover whether or not society is racist, which is a huge part of the problem, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's try to weed out actual cases of racism, actual cases of discrimination individually, and just let the populations fall where they may. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
There's no evidence that standards are being lowered when it comes to the airline industry.
Liar. I mean, liar. How's he? There's no engineers at Harvard. There's no Asian engineers at Harvard.
Well,
give me a
and the problem is, like, this is, again, it comes into like he's just assuming that these companies are racist. Because if they're not racist and they just have if you have a company that hires pilots or hires engineers or hires people to work and, make the airplanes, if they just say, here are the requirements to work in this company, and it has nothing to do with race whatsoever, it's just like some level of academic success or whatever, and you don't get the exact like proportion that you get of the population, then that doesn't mean that anyone inside the company is racist. Okay.
Not according to Don Lemon, though. That is
according to Don Lemon, that's the only explanation.
Or racism. Right. Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. It's just, and this is what Elon Musk is pointing out, and Don Lemon doesn't get. It's just funny that Elon is completely trying to explain it to Don Lemon, like he's 4 years old, and he still doesn't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
So you've repeatedly said that
there's another problem that we talked about, which is that, so like, if you want to get a job at Google, okay, or Tesla or some other like high level place where they want, it's like, say it's like a high level tech job, as a programmer, they're not going to just want to like draw upon programmers. They're going to want to draw on like the top like 1% of programmers to work for their companies.
Yep.
And that's definitely not going to, I mean, that's why you're going to end up with like a lot of Asians and things like that. You're going to get a disproportionate number of people that are in those top categories. You're not going to be able to get some sort of like magical exact ratio of the population.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Evidence that standards are being lowered, and watch the replies showing all the evidence that it is.
Replies, though, on social media or on Twitter are not necessarily fact and evidence. No, that's people's opinion.
They will cite all the reply, in the replies to this. You will see how often the information is cited, showing that indeed there are significant cases where standards are lowered.
And I do hope that happens. I do hope that happens, and I look forward to it. And as you said, if you're wrong, then you're wrong, and if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong.
Yes.
Okay. So and I'm glad we're having this conversation, debating. This is what we should be doing, debating the issue. So if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, and then they'll be proven in the thing, and you as well. But I just want to tell you that pilot that you talked about, in fact, was a woman pilot, landed the plane safely, despite the major malfunction with the equipment. Boeing has taken responsibility for that incident, saying that it was caused by a faulty door panel. So I'm not sure what that had to do with lowering the standards for pilots when it was a faulty.
No, it's not lowering standards for pilots. It's the incentive structure. I believe at Boeing changed to include DEI as a fundamental executive incentive. In my view, it should be purely about passenger safety.
Okay, but do you understand how by saying just that standards are being lowered, that you're implying that they're being lowered because people are less skilled and less intelligent, and you're talking about people of color and or women?
Oh, look, he got it. He finally got it. Sitch.
He got it, but he also doesn't get it. Like if you tell your manager, hey, we're gonna give you a bonus if you reach some constructed metric of diversity, right?
Yeah. They're going to lower standards pretty quick.
Right. What that means is that the executive or the manager is going to say, okay, I'm going to make sure that I hit that number, even if those employees aren't up to snuff, because I want a bonus.
Right. Yes.
That's obviously the behavior you're incentivizing. And
Yep.
the problem, and this will never get through in the conversation until this is verbalized, because the problem is that Don is assuming, and other people are just assuming, that there's a magical number of perfect population out there that's a perfect proportion of America that are just not getting jobs, that are all as qualified as anyone else, but just because of some kind of form of direct racism.
So many people on the left, they think anyone could do Elon Musk's job.
Yeah.
Which just is so far removed from reality. You read that Walter Isaacson book on Elon Musk, and I mean, guy knows his shit. Definitely knows his shit. It's hard for me to imagine just any old leftist could just step right in and take over for Elon Musk.
Look, I'm saying we should not lower standards.
But you don't?
That's it.
I think everyone can agree that you shouldn't lower standards.
Right.
But you're implying that they're lowering standards because of people of color or women, because someone is not a white male. You're saying that they're less skilled and less intelligent.
Dude, he's so fucking he's such a moron.
Right.
He's such a moron. He's such a moron.
That's what
No, I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying that they are.
Then why would they be lowering the standards?
I don't know. Why are they lowering the standards?
Just so you know, 5% of...
Look, he doesn't want to say it. Elon Musk doesn't want to say it. He's lowering the standard. There.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I said Elon doesn't want to say it, but I do think Elon's doing a bad job at verbalizing what the issue is. It's he's leaving too much room for vagueness to allow this attack of racism, essentially.
Yeah. They're lowering the standards because there's not enough qualified applicants to fill a certain diversity quota.
Right. And actually, you could reverse this on Don or anyone in this conversation, because you're saying, wait a minute, you're the one who's being racist. You're assuming that there's white people working at these companies who are all racist, and that's the only reason that they're not hiring non-white people. That's the assumption when you make these arguments. So you're trying to accuse me of racism when you're the one that's starting from the racist assumption.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Look, this is a totally messed up problem. Well, I guess it's not a messed up problem if you don't care about the diversity quotas. If you do care about the diversity quotas, you've got to incentivize people to want to go into these occupations. And the way people are currently being incentivized is by lowering the standards.
Well, yeah. But this is why I hate the concept of systemic racism, and almost everyone that talks about it uses it incorrectly, either intentionally and dishonestly, or just because it's confusing. Because you can care and say, okay, theoretically, I want to have a society that every person in every job will mirror or closely mirror the exact population breakdown, of the society that you want. If there's 13% of the population is black, that you want 13% of black people to be doctors, lawyers, but pilots, all those things. You can advocate for that and want that to be the goal, but the way to do that is not to lower standards, or to say like, okay, you need to make sure you go out and hire these people, because by doing that, you're saying that the people doing the hiring are racist. That's the only reason why. When in reality, it's probably more of the historical thing that we were talking about. And the way to actually solve that problem would be to create systems that would help lift people up, which unfortunately we seem to be very poor at figuring out how to do that. But that's another issue.
Well, the historical problem was racism, but I do think
Yes.
now the problem is incentives. Like
Yes.
if you grow up in the social justice milieu and you think like if I'm black and I work hard academically, it's just going to come to nothing, then what's the point in working hard academically? So it's the incentive structure that's messed up now, not necessarily well, and I'm sure there is plenty of people who are economically disadvantaged that have trouble getting ahead. So,
Well, the problem is like, okay, so you have a history of racism that made people A, disproportionately poor,
mhm.
and then B, disproportionately angry and not trusting of society,
Right,
specifically white people in white society. And so that's a recipe to create bad incentives that you're talking about, and also to create a culture that's basically going to not get people to succeed in society. And you need to
yeah,
somehow, and those things were created because of racism. And so it's like, okay, well, how do we fix that now? And that's an incredibly complicated, difficult, murky problem to solve. But that's the only way to fix this thing. It's not to just lower standards, after the fact, which is what
right,
Elon's trying to talk about and what Don is not getting and processing in this conversation.
right, yeah.
The pilots are female, 4% are black. So you're talking about this widespread takeover of minorities and women when that's not actually.
See, look at even the way he frames it.
Yeah.
He frames it as if Elon Musk is against minorities taking over in business. This is so dishonest.
The invasion.
Sitch.
Yeah.
This guy's a piece of shit, man. This Don Lemon guy's a piece of shit.
Yep.
True.
I'm not saying there's a widespread takeover.
Well, you're saying that the standards are being lowered because of certain people. And you don't believe in DEI, right?
Like Elon Musk would like nothing more than an army of super genius black people like marching into his Tesla company so he could put them to work. Like the idea that it's like a race thing is just so ludicrous.
Mm-hmm.
Do you not believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I think we should be treat people according to their skills and their integrity, and that's it.
Do you know that studies show?
Studies show.
Yeah, well, we can look them up. So your reaction to studies show, and I understand, right? Because I always like to point to an exact study, right?
Sure.
Something that is factual. It's the same thing when you talk about, well, let's see what the replies are on Twitter or on X.
Yeah, so
I feel the same. I feel the same way about that. But this is what studies have shown, and people will reply and they'll say that companies with more diversity in their leadership teams have reported higher innovation rates than those with lower diversity or low diversity, and they're better companies and they make more money. This whole idea about DEI, if you go woke or whatever, you go broke, that's not necessarily true. People with diverse leadership teams and diverse workers make more money and more innovative.
Like I said, my view is that the only basis for promoting somebody should be their skills, talents, and their integrity, and that's it.
I want to ask you about, there's a federal government, EEOC, they are also currently involved in a lawsuit against Tesla that alleges that there's a history of widespread racial harassment against black Tesla employees, as well as a pattern of retaliation for speaking out. What do you say to that?
What do you say to the fact that you run a racist company?
Yeah, I know, it's so dishonest.
That's so funny. I love it.
Look, I could see, but Elon Musk has this like hardcore culture in his businesses where he wants people to work like 150% at all times, which I could understand if you're the kind of person that just wants to, chill at work. That's not really an Elon Musk type attitude. So there's stories in the Walter Isaacson book where he was going around on the Tesla production lines and basically going up to people and looking at what their job was and like trying to figure it out, how to make it faster, how to work harder, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see if people can turn to the, oh, I'm being discriminated against because of my race card. I could see people turning to that card if they don't want to engage in that hardcore work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends upon the numbers. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't believe that is true. I think we've got a very good, like if you walk around the Tesla Fremont plant, I think it's a very good atmosphere. In fact, I practically lived there for 3 years trying to make the production work.
Were you aware, if you lived there, were you aware of such behavior?
I never saw it.
So you're saying that this is not true, it's not happening?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, there's over 20,000 people. So you say, like, oh, if there's over 20,000 people in one building, well, is everyone going to behave perfectly? No. Did I see any situations that I thought were improper? I did not.
Let's talk about.
Yeah, why would you do it right in front of the boss? Like, you know what Elon Musk looks like, right?
Right.
Yeah. Of course,
I mean,
there's
listen,
going to be.
Elon's racist. Okay, as soon as Elon comes out, that's when you start intentionally dropping the N word.
Elon is Elon comes up with a perfect response here. There's 20,000 people in the building, dude.
Yeah.
Like, do you think you can put 20,000 people in one place and not have some kind of personality conflicts going on?
Right.
You're high.
About trans rights and the woke mind virus, because you've talked about that a lot. You're right about that a lot on the thing. You have been deeply outspoken about the issue of trans rights. You posted trans rights. You posted that pronouns and bio mean the woke mind virus ate your brain. Do you know what the term woke actually means?
Do you know that Elon Musk has a trans kid? I don't know if it's
I didn't know.
male to female or female to male. Yeah. One of his kids is trans and has disowned Elon as a father. It's pretty sad.
I did know that. We talked about that in the past, yeah.
Yeah.
It's come to mean a lot of things.
But what originally it was meant to mean, it's just being aware of inequities in society and being aware of facts and history.
Yeah.
That's all it means. That's all it means.
I love this because
That's all
this
it means.
is, I say this all the time. Like, the conservatives and the progressives are using the same exact definition. The conservatives just don't believe it exists. They think the racism and systemic racism and social injustice that you're pointing out is like your imaginary friend. Okay.
Mhm.
It's not there. So,
Well,
I think
and it's funny because like the original derivation of this came from, as I said, Stokely Carmichael, who was using the term to advocate for Black nationalism. And then it kind of got transformed into just like being aware of like actual, not systemic racism, but actual racism when you're in an area that you could get like accused of something wrongly. And then it came back and it's now once again is sort of more related to the original definition of CRT, of, being more ethnically nationalistic and not believing in, colorblind liberalism.
yeah, Whitey's out to get you.
Yes.
That's what it meant.
Yeah.
And I would argue that's kind of still what it means.
Sure.
And a lot of the conservatives are saying, look, Whitey's not out to get you, okay? You need to get over that. So that's the difference of opinion. Look, obviously there are some racists, but if you don't think we've made huge strides in lowering the number of racist white people in America, like, you're high. You're just high.
Yeah. But that's sort of like so much of their grift relies on that idea.
I think there was a time in America where being openly racist against Black people was, you would gain social status from that.
Yes.
Now you just lose social status by being openly racist. Yeah.
Right. Now you gain social status by being openly racist against white people.
Right. Which is horrible.
Yeah,
which is horrible.
exactly.
And Don Lemon is a testament to that, because this whole
Right.
interview is basically him being racist against white people.
Mm-hmm.
Come to be I think being aware of inequities in society is fine, of course, but trying to blame everything on trying to make everything a race issue is, I think, divisive and corrosive to society.
Even as it relates to trans issues, which is what I'm.
Yeah, race or gender or whatever.
You think that society blames everything on racism now?
It blames a lot of things on it, and yeah,
You think that's unfair?
yeah.
Why?
I think we should not make this a constant subject. I think we need to move on. I think we should treat people like people.
You don't agree that this country was founded on racism and founded on slavery and in many ways inequities?
This guy's so stupid because look, there are a lot of race grifters out there who are getting rich off this stuff. Don Lemon seems to be one of them. So
Yeah.
obviously you're going to be in favor of stretching it out forever.
Well, and that was like such a clear Kathy Newman right there. Cause he's like, oh, I think Elon's like, I think we should, not focus on it, not make it the prime existence. We should move on. We should treat people like people. He doesn't say anything about the history of the country. And then Don immediately says, are you saying this country wasn't founded on racism and slavery? It's like, where did I say anything related to that topic, motherfucker?
Exactly.
That still continue on to this day?
I think every country at that time, and I think even today, was extremely racist. Every country, and obviously slavery was present in about half of this country, and was not present in the north. There was racism for sure, but I think we want to look to the future rather than the past, and instead of engaging in constant rehashing of the past, because in fact, if you look at history, if you study history broadly, everyone was a slave. Everyone.
Yes. Well, not everyone was a slave.
No,
but,
everyone was a slave.
Okay, but
we are all descended from slaves.
yeah. Well,
All of us.
yeah.
It's just a question of when. Was it more recent or less recent? That's it.
right.
But what future do we want? Is this something we want to make a part of our constant dialogue forever, or do we want to say, like, let's just move on and treat everyone, according to just who they are as an individual?
I agree with you with that. That's the ideal. But what the evidence shows is that that's not what's actually in practice.
I think we're doing better than anywhere else.
That's true. I agree with that. But that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean a lot to a whole lot of people who aren't able to take advantage of the opportunities that you were able to take advantage of, simply because the color of your skin.
What advantages did my color of my skin give me?
Well, there's an ease that you have in society that many people of color don't. You were able to come to this country voluntarily. There are many people who were not able to come to the country voluntarily. There are people who came here as
very difficult
slaves.
for me to come here.
And there is a legacy of slavery that still continues on. There's a legacy of racism that still continues on in this country. That's undeniable.
Well, if we keep talking about it nonstop, it will never go away. If we keep making that the central thing, it will never go away.
Well, why do you believe that?
I think I'm just making a simple statement of fact. So I think we want to get away from making everything a race or a gender or whatever issue, and just treat people like individuals.
Do you have any desire to understand what many people of color and even trans people, how they feel about this country and how they're treated in this country? If they say and they believe that they are treated a certain way in this country, why don't you believe them?
That's
You kind of have a
Oh shit! Go ahead. You go first.
Well, it's like, why should, okay, it's like, oh, just because someone's, biological identity, you should automatically trust whatever they say, regardless of whether it's true or not. Why don't you just listen and believe, Elon? Elon, why don't you just listen and believe?
Yeah. Look, and also it's just hugely bigoted what he just did, because he's
Yeah.
basically saying all trans people think exactly the same thing. All
Yes.
black people think exactly the same thing. Like, you don't think you can find a black person that completely 1000% agrees with Elon Musk and that we should just stop focusing on race and move on? You don't think you
Of
can
course.
find one black person that thinks that?
Of
It's
course.
just, yeah. Go ahead.
And it's also just super, I mean, like the implication is very racist against white people because he's saying, oh, so if Elon, a white person, says, I don't think that my skin color has granted me these advantages that you're claiming, you have to automatically disregard him. And if someone who's
Yes.
not white says that they think that their skin color has not advantaged them, you have to automatically believe what they're saying.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's so hilarious to me. It's so funny. You've got one person that's just clearly racist, but doesn't even see it. He's the fighter against racism. He's the
Right.
speaker for all the entire black and LGBT community.
Right.
Oh God. There's so many people in that community that are totally embarrassed of Don Lemon.
Yeah.
Situation where someone is a self-described victim, and they just get to be that because that's how they feel.
I think that does happen in some cases, but not all cases. And I think that not understanding the history of the country, I think, is a real shame. Look,
We should understand the history of the country and other countries.
I've had incredible opportunities as a person of color.
Right.
But I've also
You're doing very well.
But I've also been discriminated against, and I know that I have. And I know that that's real. And for someone to say that that isn't happening, I should just move forward and not think about that and ignore the past, is insulting.
Do you know that he tried to blame racism on his being let go by Elon after this interview? Do you know that he came out and was like, I don't want to think that it's like a black thing, but I kind of do think it's a black thing.
I'm not saying it. Don, you keep putting words in my mouth. I'm not saying it.
I didn't say that you said
I'm
it.
saying that we want to. We as a country should move beyond the questions of race and gender, and we should treat people like individuals and base our opinions on them on the, their character and their skills.
I don't think that anyone would
How dare.
disagree with that.
Exactly.
All I'm saying is that
What?
that's not happening and is not equal for everyone. That those opportunities don't happen for everyone. And I am a living example that they don't. I know that they don't because I live it.
You've been incredibly successful.
I have been,
And I
in
think-
spite of it all. But I know what I know. I've experienced what I've experienced. You haven't done that. And I cannot.
Listen, I know what I've experienced, but your experiences, those are all lies. Those are all bullshit. You can't trust your experiences, but I can trust all of my experiences. Okay.
Everyone says that Don Lemon is like a narcissistic egomaniac. And this just
Cements
makes
that.
me, it
Yeah.
makes me believe that a
Right.
million percent, because obviously, like, Don Lemon sees himself as the next Albert Einstein here. He could have gotten so much further if it wasn't for the fact that he was black and gay. I think a lot of people would make the argument that Don Lemon is as far as he is because he's black and gay. Like,
Mhm.
Don Lemon is not, he's not something society can't do without.
Yeah.
He's not indispensable to
No.
our culture.
No, he's just some
Yeah.
schmuck.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the world we live in today would be tangibly different if
Right.
there was no Elon Musk.
Right.
I think if there was no Don Lemon, no one would notice. And Don Lemon can't stand that.
I don't know what it's like to be from South Africa. I don't know what it's like to be a white man. I don't know what it's like to be a woman. I don't know what it's like to be a Latino person. I don't know that. So I wouldn't speak for them and just say, you need to move on.
Just I
But I would
also-
tell them that if you're white and you have a difference of opinion on this issue, then you're wrong. Even though I don't
Yeah.
know what it's like to be white.
He totally contradicted himself, didn't he? I don't
Yeah.
know what it's like to be a white privileged male from South Africa who's a billionaire.
Right.
He totally contradicted himself. I hate this argument because, I mean, we live in a thing called a culture, Sitch, where there's all these movies and novels and all this different media designed to give us the experience of other people. So when
Right.
people say, you know, I don't know what that is. Look, you've got some idea because you've seen Schindler's List, right? I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. You know the experience because you've seen Menace to Society, right?
Right.
You can relate somewhat.
On. That's not for me to say. I believe that it would be great if the country could live up to that ideal. You think that everyone has the same opportunities in America, regardless of their background and ethnicity. Do you agree?
No, I don't think everyone has the same opportunities.
Okay. So when you talk about, let's talk about trans rights. When you decided to,
This part's kind of boring, actually, but Elon just kind of reiterates exactly what he said again. Okay, so let me jump
right.
ahead a little bit. Is that, oh, hold on. Don't want to accidentally delete my time codes here.
We will not.
Okay.
you're an intense person. Where does that intensity come from?
I was born that way, and I had a tough childhood.
You did?
So yeah.
How so?
Right, Walter Isaacson goes into it in the book, and we only have a couple minutes left, so
All right.
too long to describe. So there are one or two questions I can do, and then we'll have to call it.
Okay. Again, I don't mean to upset you. Why are you just...
No,
It's like, did I ruin our date, Elon?
I've only accused you of being racist and pushing Jewish, the JQ, and only accuse you of promoting ideas that mass shooters and Nazis promote. And we're actually coming up to the agreed upon hour time, but like, why are you trying to end this interview so quickly? Are you upset? Are you triggered, bro?
Right. Yeah. I was just getting ready to ask you about your dad, who
Yeah.
fathered a son with his stepdaughter. Like,
Right.
can we go into that a little bit?
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Oh
I
God,
know.
that's why Elon is freaking out here, because he's like, yeah, I got my dad, and my dad is kind of crazy. His dad is like a crazy racist MAGA supporter who fathered a child with his stepdaughter.
Yeah.
Who was like 40 years his junior.
Mhm.
So look, that's fertile ground for Don Lemon to take advantage of, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. He sees it coming. He's like, this is when he really decides to fire Don. That's not really fair, right? How does he control his dad? What's he going to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have a whole room full of people waiting to meet with me.
Okay.
So we're just going over time.
Okay. All right. I understand that. So when you talk about, you said you were born that way. Is that, did you think that the way that you see the world has to do with your relationship with anyone, perhaps your father or someone in your family?
I think we're all affected by the people we grew up with. My aspiration is to do whatever it takes to extend consciousness into the future. That's my goal. To make life multiplanetary as part of extending consciousness into the future.
He totally is going there. That's where he's going. He knows that Elon's dad is a giant racist. Elon admits this. I mean, it's not like it's a secret or anything. Elon's dad made a YouTube channel called like Father of a Genius or something, and was trying to take credit for a lot of Elon's success, which is laughable. So,
Right.
yeah, this is so bad. This is so bad that he's doing this. Don, you piece of shit, you. That's so unfair. Can you imagine if your dad was a giant racist and somebody tried to come out and say, well, you must be a racist because your dad's a racist.
Right.
So bad. Yeah.
And the past few years, and considering everything that's gone on, has it been difficult for you and your family life?
It's been okay.
So then how do you see your legacy? Elon. How do you see how people see you in the?
First of all, I say that if I died knowing that I did what was right, or did my best to do what was right, and even if in the history books they said I did wrong, I would still feel okay about that. I care about the reality of goodness, not the perception of it.
Moment of silence. That's so awesome. It's so awesome. Right. That is what you want from people.
Sure.
So few people do that. Everyone is all worried about their image, their status. Elon wants to do as much good in the world that he can possibly do. It's so beautiful. And everyone hates this guy.
I think a lot of stupid we should view Twitter, civilization.
That doesn't help. That doesn't help.
Yeah, okay. So you're saying you're basically saying he should be more image conscious.
No, I'm just saying he should not say such stupid shit. Like, come on.
Twitter is kind of a mistake for any famous person. I don't know why they even engage in it.
That is, well, he has to because,
Right.
But yeah, I agree.
As tenuous, as fragile, I would still feel okay about that. I care about the reality of goodness, not the perception of it. I think we should view civilization as tenuous, as fragile. If you do study history broadly, you'll see that there's a rise and fall to civilizations. They don't always go up. So we should do everything we possibly can to preserve and extend civilization as we know it.
Yeah.
And improve it. To become more enlightened over time. And we therefore want to address civilizational risks. We want to make sure that we don't have, for example, demographic collapse, which is the case in a lot of countries, just very low growth rate. We want to avoid World War III, anything that is a civilizational risk. That's what I care about, civilizational risks. How do we extend consciousness into the future such that we are able to...
Okay, well, we have to listen to the rest of this, but I thought I'm not upset. The whole, like, why are you upset, bro? Why are you upset, bro?
I can't believe he was going down the let's talk about your dad route. Oh,
yeah, it's pretty bad. Pretty bad.
That's so why.
Okay. Let's read some supers.
Alrighty. This was great.
Sodoge for $10. Thank you so much. Says, hey guys, I'm trying to politicize the tragedy of the Maryland Bridge to push my ideology. So far, I have wokeness, foreigners, and late-stage capitalism as causes. Any advice on other angles to use? I guess you got to throw the Jews in there somehow. Somehow it's the Jews' fault, right? Because everything is always the Jews' fault. Somehow, the Jews. I did see people where I fucking hate people. There's already the people that are like saying that it wasn't the boat crashing into the bridge that made it collapse. It was secretly they put explosions on the bridge and charges. So dumb, so dumb.
Please.
And I'll say this too, like, so obviously anyone blaming, like, I don't, as of when I started this stream, I don't know if they know any more information about why the boat crashed beyond the fact that if you don't know what we're talking about, a boat crashed into a bridge.
Look, I'm bringing up we'll play the clip because if you
I don't know if
some of you haven't.
Well, I don't know if we should play the clip because
why?
I don't know. YouTube's weird about some things. I mean, you wouldn't think that should get restricted, but who knows?
Okay.
But yeah,
you can look it up. Yeah, there's like a 40-second clip going around of a boat hitting a pillar on a bridge and the bridge totally collapsing. It's horror show.
Yeah, in Baltimore. Yeah, it was, and at 1:30 in the morning, I believe, this big shipping boat crashed into a pillar and it was like a 1.6 mile bridge, 4-lane bridge, and it collapsed like instantly. Like it just falls apart like Lego bricks, as soon as the boat crashes into this support column. And
I mean, more like a Changa tower, but
yeah, you're right. Yeah, because it's like, yeah, exactly. But unfortunately, it was at like so late at night, because if this was during the day, there would have probably been hundreds of cars on that bridge, and hundreds of people would be dead now. And they think they're only estimating something like 7 people will have been, died from like their cars falling into the bridge. And actually, it's very lucky because when you watch the video, you see a handful of cars pass over, but when it actually hits the bridge, at least from the video that I saw, you don't actually see cars over the bridge, on the bridge, when it actually gets hit, which is fortunate. So this could have been significantly worse. But yeah, I already see like a lot of stupid people, all jumping to whatever political conclusions fit their narrative about who's to blame for this one. least from when I saw the stories about this starting the stream, it's not even clear why the boat hit the bridge yet. It was suffering some kind of power failures. Why it was? There's already like retards on the left saying that this is somehow capitalism's fault, and there's already retards on the right that are somehow blaming wokeness or DEI for the bridge for why this bridge is getting collapsed. And I already saw people blaming immigrants somehow. Like it's just I don't know. It's so disgusting to me that whenever there's some kind of tragedy or problem, all the assholes jump immediately to try to say that somehow this proves their pre-existing worldview or ideology. So
Yeah, it drives me crazy.
before any like information, but
I always wonder how much of it is foreign actors just trying to make controversy over here.
I
I
mean,
mean,
I
there's
don't know
got to
because
be
like
some element of that, right?
that I'm sure there's some element of it, but you see a lot of the people who are, the political pundits
Oh,
who
okay, yeah. People we
basically
know.
they make money pushing their very narrow worldviews to audiences that just eat this shit up and they all just, jump on their narrative when there isn't any information really to go on to so why this has even happened yet. So
How did they get
Brian
this
for $5 says,
recording?
I thought Don Lemon was in the corporate bubble in CNN, but after seeing a few clips of this interview, he actually believes the Garbo who he's been spewing. Yeah, I think it's actually disturbing to see. I get the impression that there was a lot of mainstream media reporters who were, let's say, who were women or who were black, who seemed to be kind of like very like moderate left leaning people. And then once the critical justice like garbage started to sort of trickle to them, they started to eat it up and they basically buy into it. Because why wouldn't they? Basically, it's like such an ego boost to them and to, everything they've done and accomplished. So
Yeah, look, he gets to take down some bougie billionaire for all of his communist followers. So,
right. And
yeah,
it's like, oh, you succeeded despite, all the horrible, racist white people that have been trying to hold you down your whole life.
yeah.
Mike Hassan for $5 says, Elon Musk, aren't you on the left? Don Lennon. What? No, not compared to Chairman Mao. There you go. Uh,
Exactly.
Hail the Free Voice for $10 says, Don Lemon seems to be a legit propagandist like Hassan. Do you think he will end up on a different platform and get more popular? Also, A class is for managed democracy. Join the Helldivers today. There you go. A class.
I actually think Hassan is smarter than Don Lemon. So
Ooh, wow, that's
believe
quite
it,
an insult. That's
believe
quite an
it or
insult.
not. Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that, but I don't know. I think this was I wouldn't be surprised if this was Don Lemon trying to advertise to be on another big platform, but there was, and I don't know the full story. There's like weird rumors about part of why he got fired and then he had like a sexual harassment lawsuit against him. And I don't know if any of this is true, by the way, but I mean, I know that he had this harassment suit against him, but I don't know if the claims in it were true. And that he was like had all these problems at CNN, and that's part of why they fired him. That were all like internal, had nothing to do with any of the on-air behavior. And if that's true, and those rumors are true, people in the industry talk, and it's very possible that no one really would want to hire him because, as you said in the beginning, Adam, he's not even like Don Lemon isn't a big draw himself, anyways. So
Yeah, he's not as charismatic as Hassan, obviously.
right.
So,
So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he just kind of exists on YouTube and tries to be independent. And I don't think he'll really be that successful over the year or so.
Nope.
Metal Face Rose for $5 says Don used to pretend he agreed with John McWhorter on most things when he had him on. That's interesting. That's all I got out the window. Blaine's Escape Corner for $2 says first gym video's up. When are you going to do a push up? There you go. Check out Blaine's Escape Corner, guys. You gotta hit the gym. The Sitch and Adam community has to get ripped. Okay, that's the goal. Sitch and Adam ripped.
I'm down.
Boondoggy for $5 says this interview feels so awkward. The most serious tone for the most mundane questions. Yeah, like Don enters the conversation in with a very awkward, like weird energy from the get go, and
He
it and it
does.
and it like definitely starts to like Elon is pretty chill in the beginning of the interview, but then as the questions get like weird, obviously the tone changes. So I don't know what's up with Don. It just seems like a really bad interviewer. Besides, obviously the questions.
That CNN isn't on the left thing just threw him for a loop because he's like, oh, I'm dealing with one of those people like Elon.
Maybe,
Elon
yeah.
was taken back. Like, you
Maybe.
figure you work there. You work there and you don't, you're not conscious of this? Huh. Okay.
Right. Girl Sarah for $2 says, planet's dying, Merc. Take this vasectomy materia. Terrible. Zorlak for $5 says, Elon's been amplifying many major Russian propagandists on Twitter. He's been doing damage to Ukraine's cause. Yeah, no, that's true. That's why I say Elon is saying a lot of stupid shit on Twitter. And this is like the problem I have with Elon is that even though I agree with like his broad political takes or like his broad political intuitions, I think Elon has 100% fallen into the same normie trap that a lot of people have fallen into, which is that because they've seen that the media and that the experts and institutions have lied or been wrong about some things, it makes him hyper um, paranoid and skeptical and dismissive of everything that any sort of mainstream institution says or believes, and he just automatically believes the opposite. And so that seems to be my impression of a lot of his positions regarding Ukraine and some other things I've seen him say like wildly stupid shit on. So
That's a fair critique. And I mean, he is friends with David Sachs as well. So,
yes, yeah, David
yeah.
Sachs is retarded shit. Hail the Free Voice for $5 says, I think the idea is that immigrants will become citizens and vote blue down the road once they are citizens. Also, Don Lemon is evil. I mean, that might be the idea. Well, I don't know. Some people might think that, but it seems unlikely to me that someone would say, hey, let's have some kind of intention of leaky borders on the off, on the, like, we're going to weigh it that people are going to be fine with immigrants like coming into the country, illegal immigrants coming in the country and whatever political problems that will cause on the off chance that 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road, we can sort of get them citizenship, right?
Right.
Or unless they're just going to rely on the fact that they're on birthplace citizenship, that their children will vote Democrat, which I'm not even sure that I don't know what the statistics are on that, but I don't know if that would line up the way that they think it'd line up. It seems like a lot to wager on this kind of on like a guess here.
I think Sitch and I completely disagree on this topic. So maybe we can even invite someone on and talk more about it in the future. So, I mean, it's an interesting, I think, disagreement. And I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I haven't looked really into the numbers, but I understand the argument people are making. So
yeah, I understand the argument. I need to see some more clear evidence of intention. And like a lot of it's we're all just guessing motivations here, right? I mean, there's no evidence of this nefarious intention that's been presented.
Well, it goes with the dictator handbook motivation, the selectorate theory, to want to widen your selectorate to increase your voting pool.
Yeah, but again, I understand that it can go with that. Lots of things can go with that way if you assume negative intention and that people are going to predict certain outcomes in specific ways. I still need evidence of these intentions, that these people believe in these intentions and acting upon these intentions. As opposed to just saying, well, it fits a model, which is like, okay, like lots of things can just fit a model, right?
Even if it's just a 25% chance that it will increase the Democratic voting pool, which again, I think it's probably a wider chance that they're increasing the Republican or the conservative voting pool because so many of the immigrants are like conservative Christians, right?
Right.
So, but even if they believe that it's just a 25% chance to look the other way and they get brownie points for being anti-racist, then I think obviously they're going to do that.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, okay, and I guess this is, and I don't think you disagree with this. I don't believe there's a shadowy room somewhere where the Democrats got together and they said, "Hey, we're going to like make the border porous in order for immigrants to come in." Okay, so you agree that that's not going on, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so then we agree. I would agree, on the other hand, that I'm sure that in the back of people's minds, because people have a lot of like rationales for when they do something, that if there's like a list of 10 reasons of like, why should I not care about the border, right? And it's like, number one, I don't want to get called racist,
That is number one. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So if there's like 10 things on that list, I would agree with you that one of the things on that list in the back of Democrats' mind is probably like, well, I think these people are going to vote for Democrats, or I think their children who are born in this country with citizenship will vote for Democrat. I'd agree that that's probably there.
No, number
on the
two
on
is
sort of
probably cater to my constituents who that want their family members to come
or well, I don't know if I agree with
and
I don't know if I
already
agree with that that order, but I'm just saying I
okay.
would agree that Democrats on the list in their mind of why to not care so much about the border, one of the things there that's affecting a decision is the belief that these people, or more likely their children who could vote if they're born in this country, will vote for Democrat is on that list of things. I agree
Yes,
that that's
okay.
there. But that's again, I'm just saying that's wholly different from the idea that there's an intention to say, okay, we're going to intentionally allow people who are legal to come to the country for this purpose. These are very
Right.
different ideas. And I don't
Yeah,
agree with the intention.
smoke-filled room, no.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
that's
all I'm
not
saying.
happening. Yeah.
Drew the Dogman for $5 says, quote, surge the border, Joe Potato. That's not incompetence. 60 executive actions is not an accident. You're being obtuse. Well, wasn't it? I think it was you, Drew. You sent me was it you, Drew? Somebody sent me like a list that some Republican had constructed that was supposed to be basically all the things that Joe Biden had done to weaken the border. And I looked through them all, and it was basically bullshit, with the exception of the big problem was the thing that I've already said a million times on the stream, which is that it was when the COVID restriction, and here's actually what you'd have to answer, Drew, and what anyone else would have to answer is making this. If the Democrats had an intentional desire to bring illegals, and actually, I won't actually address this beyond this until someone can answer this question. If Joe Biden, the Democrats, had an intentional desire to bring illegal immigrants into the country because they thought it would help them vote, why did Joe Biden, for the first 2 years of his presidency, when he was able to use the COVID restriction to kick out millions of people, do that exact action? That completely contradicts your conspiracy that you're putting forward.
Right.
It
Because
should
he
have been
would
day
get rid
one.
of it immediately. He'd
Right. It
be
should have
like,
been day one.
pandemic's over, babe. Come on in.
It should have been day one. Joe Biden says, you know what? COVID be damned. We're going to just let all these people in. I'm going to get rid of this restriction, which he didn't do. Joe Biden kicked out millions of people from this country using the COVID emergency powers. And as I said, because I actually researched this and no one has ever been able to provide anything tangible beyond this, was that once the COVID lockdown powers went away because the COVID medical emergency declared by the government ended, and Joe Biden put in place his system that he thought would sort of deal with the border problem, it was woefully not equipped to actually deal with the problem.
Right.
So,
yeah,
a problem which interestingly Joe Biden has now acknowledged very clearly and specifically what the problem is, which is that people come in the country, they apply for asylum, and it takes 2 years, 10 years for them to get their court date to be adjudicated, and then then they get lost in the system. So you have to explain that contradiction otherwise. Caleb for $5 says thoughts on what a good Elon interview looks like to you guys. Elon's handling of this was disappointing. Don Lemon's performance was expected. I mean, I think I like some of his answers, but I agree with you that I think Elon's performance was bad in terms of that didn't explain things very well. But if you've seen a lot of Elon interviews, I mean, I've never seen Elon give a good interview in my life. I think he's just kind of like a weird autistic nerd, awkward person, and he's not like the best at explaining these sorts of things. So I guess I'm just kind of expecting that sort of performance from Elon.
I mean, it is a good critique, though. I mean, Elon should have been ready for this kind of nonsense and been ready to come back at it. But so, yeah, I think Elon could have made some better examples, but it is what it is. Look, he's a busy guy. He's got like 20 companies to run, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, not every skill set's going to go. Like you could be someone who's really good at managing a company and not be good at giving interviews, So it's not always the same set of skills.
In the Walter Isaacson book, they talk about what we didn't listen to the part where he talks about taking ketamine, but he talks about his manic depressive episodes where he just kind of, I mean, the guy works relentlessly, like 7 days a week forever, right?
Right.
So eventually he reaches like some breaking point and he goes into an office and like turns all the lights off and lies on the floor. And so he's even had this happen when he's got to give some, stockholder meeting talk or something like that. And the guys like the CFO and the other people have to come in and be like, Elon, we have to, we're talking to investors in like 15 minutes. Are you going to pull out of this or what? Which is, I mean, he's definitely bipolar. So it's interesting that they go into the ketamine stuff. But the Walter Isaacson book is fascinating. If you guys are looking for something to read, I thought it was just amazing. Yeah.
Right. Less than sell for $10 says, Adam, you're wrong about the shadow banning. They're not shadow banning. There's a difference between saying you were deboosted and saying you're not boosting something they just don't boost the hate, but they don't deboost it. So they're saying there's like a distinction. Like a shadow banning is to say, okay, we are going to intentionally hide something versus just we're not going to have the algorithm push it up. They're saying there's a difference between those two actions.
I get that. And I don't necessarily know. Everything is kind of algorithm driven anyway. So, like, your followers don't see all of your content because there's like a timing issue, whether or not they've set up their timeline to show them the most relevant stuff or just stuff that's popping up now. So maybe you've posted when they're not there. I understand the distinction that you're making. I don't know how relevant it is. Since you have a opinion,
I mean,
on this?
there is a difference, though. They could be the distinction could be minor in terms of practice, right?
Yeah.
Like if you put something out, like if we put out a YouTube video and YouTube says like, oh, we're looking at your video and we think it contains something hurtful or hateful, so we're not going to put it in anyone's feed, right? Unless you click like our channel, you click the subscribers tab specifically. I mean, that's basically, to me, that's essentially a shadow ban. I would say it's the same thing as,
YouTube also does this thing. Like if all of you guys decide to watch a video, YouTube is like, okay, well, this video is hitting it with their audience. Let us share this video with other audiences and maybe they'll pick up some followers, right? But if the thing that's super hitting is like racist or something, and they decide not to even show it to your own followers,
right?
How is that not shadow banning or deboosting?
Yeah, no, I think it's similar enough.
Yeah.
Boba Peck for 20 months. Thanks so much. Says, hey guys, so listening to the Jordan Peterson Destiny stream. Seems like Jordan Peterson has fallen to the same trap James Lindsay has with CRT, but with utopianism. Thoughts? I mean, I don't watch enough of JP to comment on that recently, but I could definitely get that impression. Sure.
I don't like watching content that has ad spots in the content. So obviously I have YouTube Premium, so I don't even really watch ads on YouTube. So that's the main reason why I don't watch more of JP's content anymore. I did say that, but I didn't make it clear on the Sunday show. I do think he did bring up utopianism more than I thought necessary, because I don't think it's utopianism is what's going on. I think it's simpler than that. I think it's like do-gooderism is what I would say. They just have an intuition that this action will do good in the world, when a lot of times it actually does the opposite.
I agree.
Yeah.
CT for 2 Canadians says, lolly shit isn't illegal. Should it be allowed on X?
No, obviously, and whoever posts it should be hanged.
There you go. Hail the free voice for
that is the response CT is soliciting. You know, that's exactly
that is the response. Yes,
there. You got it. Okay. Yeah.
Hail the free voice for $5 says, well, I would agree with Sitch if the Democrats weren't trying to remove the need to show ID to vote. So the removing, which I disagree with, by the way, but the removing the need to show ID to vote has been something that Democrats have been in favor of for 40 years, maybe 50 years. And it's something that the Republicans have been against for the equal length of time. It doesn't have to do with illegals, because it doesn't have nothing to do with like showing your ID. It has to do with the fact that they think they're operating under the idea, which maybe is true or maybe is not true, that any sort of the way that Democrats and Republicans think about this, and there's a Nate Silver article that talks about this. Democrats think that there's a larger amount of people in the country who will vote for Democrats, but they're too lazy or poor or uninformed to vote. But Democrats believe strongly, I don't know if this is true, but this is what they believe, that if everyone in the country voted and had to vote, that the Democrats would never lose an election because they think the majority of the people that don't vote are actually more aligned with Democratic voters. And the Republicans, for the most part, actually think that they agree with this idea too.
Yes, they
And
do.
so that's why there's this sort of this idea of the Democrats, their thought process is they want to basically make it as less restrictive as possible to get as many people to vote, to remove every possible barrier that they can, because that will get more people, lazy people, who don't normally vote, to get out and vote. They want to make it as easy as possible. Where the Republicans think that that will hurt them, and they think that their voting base is more dedicated to come out and vote. And so therefore these measures of having ID and not having not having extra time to vote, not being able to mail and vote, they don't think that will stop their voters from showing up.
Their voters will jump through a ring of fire to show up and vote.
Right. Now, I don't know if any of that's true, but that's the thought process that the Democrats and Republicans are both operating under and have been for quite a long time.
Well, there have been a number of studies that prove this point. Whether or not those studies are accurate or still accurate to this day.
They could change. Yeah, it could be different now. Right.
Yeah. So, but everyone is working off this belief. Yeah.
Right. And that was kind of part of Nate Silver's point in the article we read a few weeks back, that he was saying that he thinks that might have been true, but that's not necessarily true in this election with Biden and Trump.
Oh, yeah. I remember
It'd be
that.
interesting if it changes. So
that was a good show. Yeah. Nate is saying that Trump is going to win. So anyway.
Zorlak for $5 says, you two haven't used Twitter lately. Elon's letting it become Gab. It's full of Nick Fuentes clones. So I do understand where Lemon's coming from. Oh, I'm going to guess you super chat that before I said that. So I do agree. I do think there's way more hate speech on Twitter than there was before, which I'm not in favor of, and I'm against that. And if I ran Twitter, I wouldn't be favoring these types of policies. But if Elon runs it and that's the way he wants to run it, that's fine. As long as, in my mind, that's fine, quote, that he wants to do that, as long as he makes it transparent that that's the way X is going to be. And I feel like the criticism that Don could levy if he was intelligent and honest would be that doesn't seem to be honest about what is Twitter's content policy and what Elon is saying in the interview. These things don't seem to line up.
I don't see why he just can't say, look, I run a business. I discriminate against racists. Get fucked. Like, what's wrong with that?
There isn't anything wrong with that. And I think he should. That'd be my exact position. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be my exact position.
Makes perfect sense to me, right?
Yeah.
Look, if you're running like a nightclub or something, you want to serve everyone. You don't want racism in your nightclub. You want everyone to come buy beer. So it's the same analogy.
Brian for $50. Thank you, Brian. Says Sitch, I disagree. The impetus for the idea is pushed from the voter up, not top down. If you look at the sentiment from at least a sizable minority in the left, they cheer the demographic shift, and politicians are responding with their voters.
Well, this is the argument that I made.
Well, no,
I would say number two is catering to the constituents. Yeah.
Right. I don't disagree in terms of what we're talking. Well, I disagree in maybe what is being pushed. I agree that there's definitely a vocal minority of people on the left who want open borders and would penalize the Democrats for any sort of border control. And that I think politicians are definitely reacting to that. And thus part of why I think Democrats are weak on borders is because they're afraid of that. 100% think that is going on. But I'm just saying that that's, again, very different than an intention of bringing people in. It's more of a fear of alienating certain, very far left voting base from showing up.
Do you accept the narrative that there are a lot of immigrants that come to work in America and send money back home to Mexico or South America? Yeah. So does it make sense that in a perfect world, they would like to not send money home to their family, but move their families to America to join them?
Well, maybe some of them. Well, when you say perfect world, I don't know. Like in a perfect world, wouldn't their country? I mean, that question doesn't even make sense because a perfect world, they wouldn't have to come to another country, right?
In a perfect world, right?
Right.
Well, in a perfect world where their country's still a piece of shit.
Perfect world where America's perfect, but their country still sucks.
Right, exactly. Okay.
Right,
Maybe
yeah,
not,
sure.
maybe not the best phrasing.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
But do you accept that there's a bunch of those people who would like their family to come join them in America?
I think there are some people that would definitely, I don't know what the numbers are. There are definitely people that would love for their family to move to America. But I think there are lots of people that they don't want to move to America. They just want to get money and then they want to keep living in their country.
Sure. And like I said, I don't know the numbers, but if there was a lot of people like that, I would say they're probably voting Democrat because they're thinking the Democrats are going to get me closer to that goal
Well, they can't
than the
vote,
Republicans are.
So it doesn't matter. They're not citizens.
Well, so they come, they're not a citizen, they become a citizen, they can vote.
Well, if they became a citizen, yeah, and then they would probably vote Democrat, sure.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Don Lemonbug. There we go. Instead of Lucy Lemonbug, we have Don Lemonbug for $2. Says, I'm a sticky sticker, but the sticks I love aren't chopped. Wow.
Wow.
There you go. Thank you, Don.
Huh. Interesting.
Brian,
like
for $5.
Lucy's alt or what?
There you go. Brian for $5 says, as an olive branch, though, I do admit there are people who take the opposite approach due to racism. I mean, sure. I think there are people that are against a lot of immigration for racist reasons, and I think there's people that are against a lot of immigration for non-racist reasons. But
yeah, and the Democrats just want to paint everyone as racist, which is politically advantageous for them, but not really good for the country.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. Zorlak for $5 says, Twitter always had bots and multi-accounts posting propaganda. Elon removed moderation while doing nothing but the above. Result is inevitably bad. I think one of the other problems besides Elon's own personal beliefs on the issue is that, yeah, they did lose. I mean, they lost a lot of staff. A lot of people he fired, but a lot of people just quit because they were all like, Elon is horrible. And I don't know if they ever filled those vacancies. So they probably just don't have a lot of people, a lot of eyeballs to look at a lot of content moderation stuff. And maybe Elon doesn't care to fill those roles anymore. So maybe maybe the content moderation rules are all exactly the same, but they just don't have enough people to look at them. I don't know. That could be an issue. And also, I think
this in the Walter Isaacson's book, by the way.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And also another issue is that I believe Elon, they basically unbanned like most of, if not all of the banned accounts. And obviously when you do that, that's going to create a flood of, bad actors back on the platform. So
who was the guy that was in charge of moderation that ended up leaving and they discovered he did some super social justice like thesis or something like that?
Yeah, I remember who you're talking about, but I don't remember his name. But
Elon actually had a really good relationship with that guy. And when he finally decided to leave, Elon would try to get him to stay on. So
right,
yeah.
Well, that's the thing.
I think that guy was a little bit mischaracterized by the right as some super social justice guy. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Because I do remember that. I remember talking about that exact story. And so I was saying, like, a lot of people left because they just bought into the narrative that Elon was like a horrible person or whatever. So
they go in Walter Isaacson's book, they go through a lot of the different policies that were like flashpoint policies on Twitter. And this is why it's interesting, because we lived through all of those. Yeah.
Right.
And it's just interesting to hear from that guy's perspective and from Elon's perspective on this. So
Nomad for $5 says, if standards were applied to journalism, Don Lemon would be out of a job.
Well, isn't that why he's out of a job? I think the standards finally caught up with him. The DEI shield finally wore off. He made some comments that were super sexist and got in big trouble for him, if I remember correctly.
Right. But I also think that my understanding is there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that is problematic, but
right. Yeah.
Oh,
can't slap the asses of all the
Joel
interns.
Roth was the name of the guy we were talking about.
Oh, that's it. Yep.
Yeah.
That's him.
Nomad for $2 says, every villain is lemons, also known as evil. True. Nice SpongeBob reference. RBGH fan for $5 says, whenever assumed racism is brought up, I always bring up the 93% prison population being male and asking them if that's systemic misandry. That's
a great comeback. Yeah, exactly.
Good comeback, yeah.
But then they're like, no, men are toxic.
The Texan for $5. Thank you so much. His studies show what studies. He says he likes to name specific studies, but he has not named one in this interview. Yeah, it's a dick
True.
from.
Well, and
Right.
I think obviously Elon was saying the community notes are going to link to the appropriate studies, and Elon was just saying, look, you can find a study that proves both sides of any argument. And if you don't acknowledge that, if you live in a world where, well, only the study that agrees with me is true, and the other study is obviously false and fake, you're not with it. You're not with the program.
Right. Moon Value $5 says, remember, Don isn't a leftist, apparently. There you go. Dialogue Always for $5 says, could you name an example of an issue that still has measurable consequences that we solve by not talking about it? So I think when Elon and other people say, and Coleman Hughes and other people say, like, we need to not talk about it, what I'm assuming, what it sounds like what they're saying whenever they talk about it, is they don't mean like you just close your eyes and ignore it and pretend like it's not happening. What they're saying is the more you talk about how racist society is against black people, the more you say that white people are all evil, racist, and all these things, the more you're basically putting in the black community's mind the idea that they can never succeed because they're just lived and mired in this like horrible racist society. And so why even bother trying? That seems to be my impression of what they mean and what people generally mean when they say that, like, we need to just stop talking about it. They're talking about like being more proactive, moving forward sort of idea. So that's the shorthand of what I think that's the shorthand of what they're talking about.
I mean, I get what you're saying, and you do need a period of talking about it before it becomes the cultural norm. But look at something like smoking. Like smoking used to be considered cool. You gain a lot of status from smoking. And then we did this huge campaign that makes people feel like they're losers if they smoke, right? And people think, look, smoking is for people with no class. So do we talk about smoking that much anymore? Is it something that everyone is constantly fighting about, smoking areas, non-smoking areas? I don't think so, because I think the culture war has moved on from that. And now everyone just thinks, well, most people just think, look, smoking is for losers.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I think just the hyper fixation on past grievances about racism, which were true, and then also equating them to still, they have ramifications to today. But as I said earlier, I think I explained pretty clearly about how those ramifications exist versus how they don't exist. That's what they're talking about.
Well, I just, using the smoking analogy, I just think we want to get to the point where, just racism isn't cool. Everyone just thinks racism isn't cool. Like, we don't need to talk about it all day. Like, we don't need to be talking about smoking all day, right? We just agree. Yeah, smoking's not cool. Right?
Yes.
Are we still doing
I don't know if I'd agree that
anti-smoking?
smoking is a good example. I'm not sure.
Well, it's if you can think of a better example, but I do think there's a point when the culture settles on some narrative and it's not a conversation. This conversation keeps happening because the culture war is going on about this.
Well, and I just think that I don't think you can take the phrase the way that you asked the question. It's kind of like if you were a Native American and you fixated all your time and energy on the history and oppression of the Native Americans, in the United States of America, you're probably going to end up having a worse life outcome as opposed to just saying, let me try to assimilate into like a modern Western society and just get a job and go down like the same career path that, everyone else in America is trying to go down. That's how I interpret that. This like, you don't want to get fixated on the past forever. You need to look forward. Right. And this is kind of the same problem we're seeing with Israel and Palestine. The forever fixation on past grievances will only mire you forever in that conflict. The only way to move forward is to move forward and to look forward. Okay.
Yeah.
For another $5 says, Adam, please elaborate on the experience you've learned from Menace to Society.
I perceive, look, I don't know if Dialogue Always has seen Menace to Society, but I do. There's a really geeky black guy in that movie. I perceive of Dialogue Always as that really geeky black guy. That's what I learned from Menace to Society.
That's funny.
Look, if you don't First of all, Menace to Society was a movie made by the Hughes brothers, who supposedly grew up in the hood. So it's supposed to be very like that movie came out, and a lot of people who grew up in the hood praised it for being very accurate to their situation. So, but I don't know. Dialogue always is situation. Maybe he didn't grow up in that environment. So maybe he just doesn't think that environment exists. And you know, if you have evidence that that is a totally fictitious assessment, look, if you have evidence Schindler's List is a totally fictitious, you should give it to Nick Fuentes. He'd want that. He would want that evidence immediately. So, yeah. Anyway, moving on.
I'm Dan Hibiki for $10 says Republicans are concerned about immigration because illegals will be counted on the census, and that will create an estimated 12 to 17 Democrat congressional seats. I mean, that's completely fair if that's true. If that's actually accurate, then that's a completely fair thing to be concerned about. Ostaf for $10 says Don Lemon, quote, I don't know of what it is to be a white man, but in many ways I do know what it is to be a white man. Yeah, I mean, that was basically the thing that he was saying. So, which is why he's completely hypocritical and racist. Hayden Dill for $5 says, hey guys, have you all heard about the disaster that is Steven Crowder? S-Class is the best Krispy Kreme donut, and A-Team is an alley donut filled with sussy cream filling.
Hayden, are you the one that sent me the video? I did watch part of it. So one of Steven Crowder's ex-employees, and I think this has been going on for a while now. Okay, it is Gay Jared. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Steven Crowder's basically making his life a living hell by suing him, or according to him. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's soliciting funds because he is spending tens of thousands of dollars on legal fees. Yeah. Which those attorneys will get you, man. They'll make your life hell.
Yeah, Jared Monroe, who was, I believe, Gay Jared on Crowder, you know, he's suing. He's trying to get out of his NDA that he had that with Crowder, and he's accusing him of like all sorts of bad behavior that essentially he can't talk about because of the NDA. So, I'm sorry, I said Gay Jared, not Gay Jared. Is this guy? What's his name on Crowder? But I'm more inclined to believe not Gay Jared's claims, just because my impressions about Crowder and his behavior is not the best. So I wouldn't be surprised if the things that he's saying are true.
Well, here's the way that I look at it, Sitch. Now, I got to give you a fair warning here, especially with someone who's litigious. This is all just speculation.
Sure, of course.
Okay. I have absolutely no evidence for any of this, but there has been some rumors that if Steven Crowder went back and redid his stage name, it would be Gay Steven Crowder, right? As opposed to not Gay Jared, right?
Right.
So, and supposedly, and this is all I don't know if this is true. This could be completely untrue. So, you know, you didn't hear it here. So, if you had a boss, Sitch, that was really, you know, into you a lot, like too much even, like he wanted to really roll around in the sheets with you, what would you make your name?
Wow. Okay. So you think that, I mean, I'm not familiar with any of that.
What would you make your name? What would you make your name to like try to put a stop to this? Just give me some ideas.
Gay Sitch. I'd say, listen, I got to really put out there to tell my male boss that I'm not interested in them. Okay. I'm going to change my name to not Gay.
Speculation. It's just speculation. Okay.
Okay.
This is just speculation.
Like That's a good speculation.
All right. Look, Steven, it's a comedy show. Okay. We're here to speculate.
There you go.
Don't sue us.
I like it.
Please.
Puddle of Abyss for $10 says the idea that X as a platform and Elon as its owner is responsible for hate speech is wild to me. Lots of white supremacist rallies were organized by phone before the internet. Is AT&T responsible?
Yeah, see, I was thinking virtually the same thing.
I think it's a little different because, like, on a phone call, you're like picking up a phone and you're calling one person, right? It'd be like no one's going to say email's responsible if people are emailing each other. It's a little different if you're on a platform like X or even YouTube or anything where you're putting out content for everyone to see, right? I think that's conceptually different than you directly messaging someone via email or phone or something to that effect.
Right, but the distinction, a lot of people argue that social media should just be like a platform, like a telephone or like electricity or water or anything.
Yeah, people.
like
I'm
that.
saying people can argue that could be their position. I'm just saying it is different. That's all I'm saying. It's categorically different in terms of how these platforms operate.
Yeah.
You can still have that same opinion. That's fine. But Forrest for $5 says many South and Central Americans are socially conservative more than the mainstream U.S. citizen, but are economically socialist. Dems are hoping the economy drives their voting. Is
Oh,
that
really?
I'm not sure that's true though. I mean, I know I've seen data on socially conservative. I haven't seen data on them being more economically socialist, especially since a lot of people are leaving countries there were a lot of failed socialist economic policies. I mean, so, like in my experience, now this is just my personal experience, but my experience, the most anti-socialist people I've ever met are generally people not just from Cuba, but also people from South and Central America because they had some experience or their parents had some experience with actual socialism. It seems to be a lot of the privileged white kids who have not had an experience with socialism who are the ones in favor of it. So, but that's just, based on what I've seen. Brian for $50. Thank you, Brian, so much. Says you're looking at the wrong branch of government. Biden is bound by the law that the federal government needs to handle the border. As president, he must deal with independent and moderate voters that tie his hands. The Congress is to blame over the years. So I would agree that Congress is 100% to blame for why our immigration system in America sucks. They've been totally not doing, Congress has totally not been doing their job in trying to actually create legislation on how to deal with immigration for the last 40, 50 years in this country. And they're definitely to blame in it. And that's why part of why I think it is ridiculous to just point the finger at Biden or any president. But that being said, the president does have power and authority to, number one, try to push their party in a direction to create legislation, number one. And then number two, as we have seen with Trump and even with Biden, the president does have authority to at least try to enact certain things via executive action, executive orders, and things of that nature. And there were things that, executive orders that Biden, I think, could have done or did that were wrong and things that he could do to try to make things better. So I agree with you. Congress has the majority of the blame, but I still think the president should, both as a leader of the party and as someone who can enact executive administrative orders, does share some level of responsibility here. Jonathan Smith for $10 says, Sitch, the Democrats, politicians are apathetic on the border. They don't care. Unless it goes horribly bad, their base, however, sees immigration of poor people as positive. Yeah, I think that's what I said. I don't disagree with that at all. J-Mac for $20. Thank you so much, Jay. Says, only ads I've been able to stand are the ones that FlashKits does. Their Space King merch ad genuinely made me laugh and got me to buy a shirt. Well, there you go. That's good. That's how you gotta do it.
I should just watch Jordan's content on Daily Wire because his ad spots aren't in there.
There you go. That's true.
Yeah. Because Shapiro runs ad spots too. It's fucking horrible, but I listen on Daily Wire and it's amazing.
The Libertarian Trap for 18 months says, Sitch, how are you going to sit there and say states getting more rep seats won't affect the presidential election? House seats are electoral votes. That's not what I meant. So actually, at all. What I meant was the point of the Electoral College is actually to bias and help states with less population and penalize states with more population in terms of their proportion. So I'm not sure how much the theory is that would actually help the Democrats in the long run. I'd have to see some numbers on that. It could, but I have to see some numbers on that. And I'd have to see some actual evidence to show that there was this intention when I believe it's not an intention. I think it's more of what other people are saying, which is that it's just apathy combined with the fear and retribution of being called racism and virtue signaling from their voters, as opposed to Democrats meeting in some dark room somewhere, trying to plan some kind of long game to do this. So
now go easy on me because it's been a long time since I looked into this, but they capped the House of Representatives at 435 members, right?
Right.
So if California has, 50 representatives and
Mhm.
and Nevada has 10 representatives, but everyone decides, look, Nevada sucks, we're moving to California, and Nevada population drops, then those representatives move from Nevada to California. California could have now they have 59 representatives and Nevada has one representative. So that's
Well, they
the
have the minimum they
situation.
can have is 3.
Right.
Right. So,
Oh,
first of all,
okay.
you have to remember a couple of things. Number one, there's a reason that the Democrats want to get rid of the Electoral College and the Republicans don't.
Right.
Okay. The Electoral College helps Republicans. I mean, obviously, we saw Donald Trump lost the popular vote and won the Electoral College. And part of this is because of the population differences. And what I'm saying is, in the hypothetical that you brought out, I'm like, yeah, of course, if you have a large population of people leave a red state and go to a blue state, that would help in the census. That would help the blue state gain more votes and the red state lose more votes in terms
Okay.
of the Electoral College.
Exactly.
But that's not really what the claim is. The claim is that you're going to have illegal immigrants come. They're going to all migrate in blue states, which I don't think is necessarily true. But even if you say it's hypothetically true, that they're going to migrate in blue states, they're going to count on the census, even if they can't vote. That's going to increase the amount of representatives they get in Congress. And I'm saying, okay, well, first of all, like putting aside that there's some sort of illicit, shadowy intention to do all this in this completely subversive way, without looking at the negative consequences of having lots of immigration in these country and coming into the country in the states, that's going to lead to electoral losses, which is exactly what we're seeing right now. Putting that all aside, you'd actually have to calculate. Well, wait a minute. Just because, say, California gets more votes because of immigration. First of all, Texas is going to get more votes as a red state, but if California gets more votes, who are those votes going to be taken away from? Well, you can't assume it's going to get taken away from a red state. That's not necessarily true at all. It could just be shifting votes from one blue state to another larger blue state.
Sure, it could.
Which is a complete net wash then. So you have this this massive conspiracy
it might
that's
not,
going to.
though.
Well, I don't know, but that's what I'm saying. How would you even be able to calculate that?
Well, the blue state would be getting more seats in the House, which in the House example, it's not necessarily because they could be Republican seats in the House, even though they're in California. There are actually Republican districts in California, believe it or not.
That's true, yeah.
But in the Electoral College, the thing would be, look, we all know California is going to go blue, and if it gets, I don't know how many electoral votes California gets, but if it gets 10 more electoral votes, well, that's 10 more electoral votes that are going to go for whatever
where do those
Democratic candidate
I get it.
that is.
I get it.
Where do they come from?
Where do they
come from another blue state, or do they come from a red state like Texas?
If you could somehow
or do they come from a purple state, which
if you
flip-flops like Ohio?
If you could somehow target it that they're going to come from red states, then yes, that would be a boon to do that. I don't know how you would structure the immigration policy to create that exact scenario.
Right. Well, you basically make sanctuary cities that entice population growth.
Okay, but you'd have to also be sort of fucking over red states' population growth at the same time somehow.
Well, okay.
To make sure it's coming specifically from red states. Is what I'm saying.
Look, you understand. It's new population because it's coming across the border. So it's new population. New population growth.
I know.
Uh-huh.
I know.
So you're injecting new population into blue states.
I understand.
That's the thing.
I understand, but okay. I'm going to say this one more time, and then let's just move on because I don't want to circle that. And I thought you understood because you repeated it back to me.
I do understand. Look,
okay,
there's
then
why are you
saying that? There's a matter then.
Look, there is a proportional map of the United States that plays into this, right? Each state has a certain percentage of the population, right?
Right.
California has 10%. Texas has 9%. If we're gonna if immigration is a big syringe and we're gonna start injecting new population in, right? And we decide, look, we're just gonna go nuts and we're gonna inject it all 3.5 million people into California. Right. Their population is now it's not 10%, it's 13%.
Right.
That's gonna figure into the proportionality. You don't have to take it from a red state.
No, but I'm saying the Democrats only gain a benefit if it is taken from a red state. If it's taken from a blue state, it's a net wash. It doesn't.
It's not taken from anywhere. It's brand
It is. Wait,
new.
stop! It fucking is taken. There's only so many votes that exist for the presidency. They don't add votes anymore, right? They don't add reps anymore. So for California to gain a representative, it means another state has to lose a representative. Understand?
Right.
Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Right. Yes. Okay.
Joshua Wright for $5 says 40, 50 years ago, when the first amnesty bill was being requested. Yeah, I understand that people ask for amnesty bills every so often, but you have to put that in your mind that if you want to believe that the Democrats are engaged in a conspiracy where they're like, because we think that we can get an amnesty bill passed, we're going to intentionally allow illegal immigration. That's a hard thing that you're not going to be able to sell me on unless you have some actual evidence, as opposed to just looking at a bunch of vague results and kind of coming up with a systemic racist conspiracy theory based on the outcomes of things. So,
all right.
ELM for 13 months. Thanks so much. Says, I am bipolar, and I tell you, I don't think Elon is. I'd make him look inoperative for several months, a year at less. He couldn't handle all the stress. Yeah, I don't think Elon is bipolar. I don't know I don't remember saying that in this conversation, but
I did.
Oh,
and
you did. I missed it.
Maybe it isn't. Maybe it isn't bipolar. In the book, I think they hint that he's undiagnosed bipolar, though. Pretty strongly.
In all the in the interviews I've seen with Elon, I haven't even seen him behave in a way I would categorize as manic. So I don't know, unless it's just he could be manic and we just don't.
Well,
see
he has these episodes. This is why he takes the ketamine, because he has these episodes where he just dips into like fucking darkness.
Right.
He like
so maybe
shuts
he has
down. Yeah.
Maybe he has I forget this various forms of bipolarism. Maybe it's a bipolarism with no mania, where you just kind of go into depressive moods occasionally. So
yeah.
CT for 2 Canadians says smoking is cool. We just know it's bad now. There you go.
Sure.
Saul for $2 says thoughts on the quote "Don't say gay" court settlement. I don't even know what that's in reference to. Florida settles lawsuit after challenge to Don't Say Gay law. Okay, I'll have to check this out after the stream. J-Mac for $20. Thanks so much, Jay. Says, I don't think culturally we're suppressing smoking. If anything, it made it more cool. Dare anyone? The countless laws, taxing, and zoning limits probably had a greater impact. Attacking someone's wallet always has the most impact. Yeah, it's hard to tell from a cultural perspective, like how much dare and stuff worked. I think from a cultural perspective, I'll say this. If you watch an old movie, not only was it like the cool people all smoked, but it's like fucking everyone smoked. And I do believe that probably had an impact. The fact that you didn't see every fucking character smoking, I think had an impact on people's psychology about it. But I do agree most of it was probably just the more awareness and understanding that it was like super fucking bad for you. And thus, not only was it super bad for you, but it was super bad for those around you, which made it very easy to justify basically banning it out of all public spaces. And that probably was the biggest impact on getting people not to do it, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Dialogue Always for $5 says, no joke, I'm genuinely curious on what you got from the movie. A lot of people come to different conclusions on it, talking about Don't Be a Menace.
Look, you're super chatting us all the time now. Dialogue. You should come on sometime. Just come on and hang out with us. We always have fun when you're on, but
we should. And actually, I should watch that movie. Maybe we should. You always wanted to do a stream on that movie.
Yeah. Menace to Society is like one of my favorite movies. One of the most interesting things about Menace to Society is the filmmakers basically cribbed the style of Goodfellas. So stylistically, the movie is just exactly like Goodfellas. You know how Goodfellas has a protagonist that has a heavy voiceover. They have a lot of the scenes are structured the same way. A lot of the camera work is the same way, just stylistically. And it is kind of a gangster movie. So it's like instead of Italian gangsters in New York, it's black gangsters in, I think it's in Watts or Compton, California. So I think it's a great movie, and it mirrors that kind of gangster life psychology. And it is brilliant that they do crib from Goodfellas, because it shows you that this gangster lifestyle is not race based. It's just it's a different kind of attitude towards life. So I think that's the most fascinating thing about it. Yeah.
PC for $5 says someone should introduce not gay Jared and not gay Ben. Maybe they cannot hook up. There you go. I like it.
Totally. But look, I don't want you to think anything about our not gay Ben. Okay. Sitch has been a perfect angel.
There you go. That's true. Except towards Adam.
Right.
Edward Sr. for 5 get the memberships. Thank you so much, Edward Sr. M8566 for $5 says, so we're going to start playing the Blunty Fly song at the start of each stream. Did you do that? I didn't notice.
Like, no, there was no Blunty Fly in this stream.
Okay.
Look, you got to have the right proportions. Okay. We don't
Right.
want to wear the Blunty Fly song out. Occasionally it's a good beat. We can enjoy it. So,
Mr. Ubercross for $5 says, I would argue the cap on the numbers of electors is what the problem is. We should have closer to 10,000 representatives according to the Constitution.
I 1,000,000 bajillion% agree, but Sitch doesn't agree with this.
I feel like that would cause problems if we had 10,000 representatives. It seems like it'd be very difficult to wrangle votes and pass legislation when you have 10,000 fucking people voting on them. I'm not sure that would be feasible. That seems a lot.
Look, this is the kind of decentralization of power that our founding fathers envisioned. And if we stuck with their vision, if we didn't cap it at 435 or whatever, we should, according to the Constitution, have this many representatives.
I don't think the founding fathers envisioned 10,000 people in the House of Representatives.
It would be so much better. You have these representatives that represent, millions of people. How can you possibly represent the interest of 1,000,000 people?
No, but I'm just saying, like, the logistics of trying to get 10,000
I know
people
that's your argument. Yeah.
managed to write legislation that everyone's going to read, that everyone's going to agree on. Like, you're going to have like the amount of committees that exist. They're going to be filled with so much. It feels like literally the gridlock. And my guess would be the gridlock would be 1,000 times worse than it already is if you had that many people.
It might be less though, because it's harder to
skeptical, but
well, wait. The gridlock is a lot easier in the Senate because you can buy off one senator and you basically stopped everything. Like, how do you buy off 10,000 representatives?
No, when I say I'm not talking about like, yeah, it'd be hard to buy off people, but it'd be harder for either party to wrangle their votes the way that they try to wrangle votes to get people to vote on legislation. There's just so many people.
We have people vote what is it?
You're also going to increase substantially the amount of pork that has to be shoved in every bill now, because you've drastically increased the amount of people that need things to go back to their constituents to show them that that they're buying them off. They're buying the votes off. There could be positives, but it's a trade-off. Okay. We're going to take the Thomas Sowell position. It's a trade-off. I think the trade-offs would be more negative. Maybe you think it'd be more positive. I'd be curious. I don't know a country that's ever had that many representatives in a situation like this, but it'd be interesting to see how it play out.
We're the best, though.
Okay. That's true.
We don't need to do what other countries do. If another country did it, I'd say we probably shouldn't do it, but
Forrest for $10 says limited characters. I agree. I don't think socialist economic beliefs are common, but Democrats are hoping it is. Children of illegal aliens can vote. U.S. schools are socialism factories. Progressive politics target them. Well, I understand that children of illegal immigrants can vote because of natural birth citizenship. And I do agree that schools are pretty woke now. So, but I don't think that there's some sort of like, these are things that are emergent properties from systems via all the things that have been kind of existing in our country for 100 years, as opposed to there being a top-down approach to sort of create this outcome. That's all I'm saying about that. Andrew Clark for $5 says, I think Adam is saying that California growing from imagination, I assume you meant immigration and not imagination, will make other states lose their representatives because they're proportionally smaller than earlier. Yeah, I understand that.
Right. But Sitch is saying some of those representatives could come from blue states and not from red states. So
yeah, in order for this to be like the intentional conspiracy of the behavior, it would only make sense if they thought that they could target it to take the proportionality away from red states, which I don't know how they would do that. But
now, if red states were less populous to begin with, then they would be taking them from red states.
Not necessarily, because it depends on the mathematical ratio formula.
Right.
So I'm not so sure about that. But if that's actually true, it would actually mean that the red states are actually doing themselves a massive disservice by shuttling immigrants to the blue
I was
states.
thinking that same thing. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
maybe
so
that wasn't such a great
maybe that was a
idea.
mistake. Dr. Diller for $246. Thank you so much. Says I made a mistake. I tweeted a video that said it looked malicious because nobody could be dumb enough to hit a bridge. Didn't see the power failure. Oops. Apologies to 6 people who saw it. There you go. How dare you, Dr. Diller? And
Uh-oh.
Dr. Diller for another $4 says, Adam, you should come to Orlando for the first ever fan meetup, whenever that is. You can see our superior Disney park, and we can give you traditional Floridian greetings of mugging you in the parking lot. It will be fun.
Well, look, I don't want to get mugged in the parking lot, but I wouldn't mind going to Florida
There you
and
go.
hanging out. Sure, why not?
I
We've
and
got
he
a
also
couple fans that live in Florida, from what I hear.
it's weird. There's like a disproportionate number of people that live in Florida. I don't know why. He
Yeah.
also says, I think your timeline is filled with more racism because of your interactions. My timeline is filled with dumbfuck leftists because I keep quote tweeting them to make fun of them. It's not even my timeline.
Yeah.
I just see. I mean, you're probably right, but I just also see it, and I kind of get sucked into rabbit holes where I can like click on quotes, who clicks on quotes, who clicks on quotes, and I can see all these accounts. And I would do the same thing before Elon bought Twitter, and it just was significantly less. So I mean, I understand that some amount of it's just what I'm seeing. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even
Mm-hmm.
have I actually saw
Okay.
this on the topic. It was kind of interesting. The Babylon Bee, which as you know is a right wing publication that very often makes fun of left wing stuff. They took a shot at right wing racists. That if a photo of a very like potato looking white guy had been edited, and it said, and he's got like a Nazi flag and a Confederate flag, and he says the article says the white race must maintain our genetic purity, says inbred man. Okay, this is
I
from the
saw
Babylon
that.
Bee, right? So
They
right wing
should do that
publication,
more
yeah,
often. Yeah.
right. So right wing publication making fun of the racists on the right. Um, that tweet had 28,000 likes. Okay,
Oh, right. That's good, right?
so here it goes. It's good,
But
but
their normal tweets get like 100,000 likes,
no, no,
so
no,
it's way
they get
down.
a lot. But
Okay.
unfortunately, one of the topper comments underneath it is from I Hypocrite, who we've talked to, with 9.5 thousand likes, who says, LOL, good one. Anyway, check out this cool microblog I found that's all about how actually it's the Ashkenazi Jews that are extremely inbred. So,
Oh, wow.
I mean,
Okay.
he's really been hitting hating on the blacks and Jews recently. So,
Yeah.
okay. Is
That's
that,
so sad. I mean, that guy's funny and smart. Why is
yeah,
he such
I don't
a
know.
what's going
Super
on? I
ultra
hypocrite.
racist. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, then I guess last thing we'll talk about, then we talked about in the beginning, which is that so there was this rumor, this very funny rumor
Just
that
a rumor.
just a
No
rumor,
confirmation,
just a
mind
rumor
you.
that a philosophy tube was in some kind of or attempting some kind of relationship with ContraPoints, and that people and the relationship soured, and people were kind of joking that since philosophy tube was sort of copying ContraPoints' video style, that maybe philosophy tube was trying to get into a relationship with ContraPoints because it's one of those like I want to be you sort of like creepy situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to like wear your skin, kind of like be you kind of relationships. And it always been kind of rumored that maybe Philosophy Tube only started to transition because Contra transitioned, sort of like thing. And Philosophy Tube has said in multiple places that they don't have gender dysphoria. A lot of weird shit going on there. But this has all been kind of like rumor and speculation, Joe. Well, ContraPoints to yesterday tweeted this out and then deleted it. Said, "Look, I get the pain of the trans woman who realizes that her boyfriend wants to be her. I really do. But on the bright side, at least your ex didn't also ditto your entire YouTube career. That would be so awkward. Ha ha." So that seems to be Contra completely confirming all the speculation and rumor about Philosophy Tube, being an ex and basically copying all of Contra's, transitioning and being in YouTube style and everything of that nature. So pretty interesting. The meme has become true, I guess.
If you Google philosophy tube and ContraPoints, there are quite a few pictures of them hanging out together. So, but I mean, obviously, content creators hang out together sometimes. So,
Right.
it's not as suspicious as this immediately deleted tweet, right?
Mm-hmm.
The tweet seems like it might be some confirmation
Yep.
of some rumors there. But yeah, no, interesting stuff. I guess the internet will now find out if it's true or not.
Okay.
What's okay? Is that it? Are we good?
That's
All
it.
right.
Oh,
Look,
JMac, our surrogate father for $10. Thanks so much. Says, with everyone getting ripped, our first fan meetup is going to look like the Mr. Olympia competition. There you go. Sitch, I'm working on a workout plan for you, but it will be pretty broad without knowing your specs. Well, thank you, Jay. I do appreciate it greatly.
oh my God,
What
that
are
would
the
be
what
so
are I mean, you can
good.
DM me. What are the specs? If you need any information, let me know. I don't know what the specs are that you're looking for. I'll try to help you out as much as I can.
I would love to be ripped, but I mean, it's
But what?
seems pretty
What?
far. It seems
Okay.
pretty unrealistic
Uh-huh.
for me at this time, but yeah.
Okay.
I don't look a fan meetup where I could like take my shirt off at the pool and I've got like totally fucking 6-pack abs. Just
Right.
oh man, that would be like my dream.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's more likely that I'm gonna wear like a turtleneck and a long
There you
sleeve
go.
shirt.
There you go. I like it. I like
Right?
it.
Yeah. Suck in my belly whenever the camera comes
Wow.
out.
Terrible.
I know it's sad. It's very sad, but look, life is a strange and wondrous journey, Sitch.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I don't think we're streaming again this week. I think this is it for the week. But the daily streams have been pretty popular, so we're getting 10K, about 10K a stream. So you guys seem to be into them. So we're gonna keep doing it.
Right.
Just other stuff is coming up this week. So
Okay.
anything else? Oh yeah, we did like a recorded video, so we're gonna try to start doing recorded videos again as well. So trying to keep our content up. All right, that's all I got to say. You got anything else?
That's it.
All right, bye
See
bye.
you guys all Sunday. Nice.